2018 meeting of the Timberlane Regional School Board. I'll remind people, the public, please keep the doorways clear for egress. You're welcome to kind of come up the wall here, but you can't block if the fire marshal comes in, we'll be in trouble here. Thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order at 7:32. Mrs. Belcher, will you call the roll?
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah. Sheila Lowe's. Here. Sarah Malcolmer.
Here.
Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Present.
Sue Sherman.
Here.
Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Also seated at the board table this evening are the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, and Student Representative Nick Belhuli. The presence of other district administrators, as well as members of the Timberlane Teachers Association officers, will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Before we stand for the pledge, we want to officially welcome our Sandown representative Sheila Lowe's to our board and table. So welcome, Sheila. We were with Sheila last night at the SAU board, but you're officially welcome tonight. So thank you very much for joining us and volunteering. So if you'd stand, Mr. Pelletier, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to allow people to sit, but I'd like to take a moment of silence and remembrance for some people that we lost in the Timberlane community over the week. And if I miss anybody in these kinds of remembrances, please remind me. But this week we lost Colleen Bovey, longtime employee for Timberlane and part of our special needs society, who was an amazing employee here. We also lost Peggy Quinn. We also lost student and alumni of Timberlane High School, Eric Kane. So I would ask that you take a moment and remember them in your prayers and memories tonight. Thank you, everybody. And we have minutes to approve. Approval of the September 20th. We had a public forum and the regular board meeting. Is that correct, Mrs.?
Yes, and a non-public
And a
session.
non-public, yes, I
And a
see.
training session thereafter.
And, oh, my gracious, we did have, that was quite the night. We had a lot of things going on that evening. So let's start with the public forum, if you would, in that order. Public forum, September 20th, 6 o'clock.
I'll make a motion to approve the public forum for minutes for September 20th, 2018 as written.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. O'Neill. A second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. Comments, questions, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? None. Abstaining? 1. Thank you. And now the regular board meeting at 7:30 on September 20th. I'll entertain a motion when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September, for the regular meeting, September 20th meeting.
Mr. Boyle makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm going to give it to Sarah. I saw her hand. Thank you, Lee. Next time. Comments, corrections, deletions, additions? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. I am going to vote on these, even though I left at 10:14. I was here for the majority of the meeting, so I'm going to take some privilege and ask to vote on the minutes. So all those in favor of the minutes? That's 8. Opposed? None. Abstaining? 1. Thank you. The non-public minutes of September 20th. Going into non-public at 10:13 PM.
I'll make a motion to approve and unseal the non-public meeting minutes from September 20th.
They're not sealed.
These weren't sealed, buddy.
Oh,
so-
okay, then we don't need to do that.
Yeah. So Lee makes the motion to approve. A second.
I'll second that.
Sean makes the motion to second. Corrections? Additions? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 7, opposed, 0, abstaining, 2. Thank you. All right, now we have the training session that we did on September 26th at 7 o'clock. That we did.
Motion to accept.
Mrs. Silva makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Boyle makes a second. This was our training session with the New Hampshire School Boards Association. I think we'll agree it was really worthwhile having them down. It's wonderful that we have the opportunity to have them provide that. And Mrs. Lowe, I hope you can, we're going to try to do some more scheduling of trainings. They really have some interesting information to offer us. They have a lot of stuff, so it's almost overwhelming. So, are we set with these? I'll entertain a vote then to approve. All in favor? 8, opposed, 0, abstaining, 1.
Madam Chair, could I ask for someone to let me know what time that session ended? I could not put an adjournment time because that wasn't,
It was a
remember what time it was?
after 9, about 10 after 9.
I think so.
Board's comfortable with 9 cents?
So it was a little after. Yeah. I'd say about
9,
10 after
9
10.
or 1?
9:01?
9.
Thank you.
Yes, it was 9 o'clock. Student representative, hello, Nick, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, so this year's going great so far, so I'll just hop right into it. Danville and Pollard Elementary Schools had a cross-country meet last Wednesday, the 26th. I heard both schools did really great, so obviously huge congrats to them. Keep up the hard work. Also last Wednesday, Pollard School was visited by Recycled Percussion, headed by Justin Spencer and Ryan Vezina in a school-wide assembly. They came to the high school last year, and I just remember it was full school-wide, and it was just, it was crazy. It got wild, so I can only imagine what it was like with a school full of elementary school kids, so I'm glad they all had fun. And also I heard that and saw some videos of faculty having a good time, so it was definitely, it looked like a good time. Recycled Percussion also had a charity egg hunt in the school where students would try and find an egg. There was one per grade. It was K through 5. There was 7 eggs in total, and they would have an opportunity, if they found it, there would be 1 student per egg, to choose any charity they wanted to donate $100 to. So obviously a huge thank you to Recycled Percussion for coming up to do this. It's kind of crazy to see, you have a group that performs in Las Vegas, and they're coming up to, middle schools, elementary schools, high schools to do this work, so it's really just, it's refreshing to see. And then obviously, thank you to the staff of Pollard for making it fun for everyone, and I'm glad they enjoyed it as well. The group focused on having fun with the kids and taught them important lessons about being kind and respectful to peers, as October is National Bullying Awareness Month. Continuing off that, as I said, October is National Bullying Awareness Month, and it's most important now than ever to educate kids on the importance of acceptance and kindness. As the district and community, it's our job to make sure no one is left behind and that we can help each other. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So it's really great to celebrate this and, encourage people to help each other. Next Tuesday, the 2nd grade class at Sandown North will be having a field trip to Apple Crest Farms in Hampton Falls. I went there this past weekend, and it was very festive, a lot of cute dogs. So I'm sure that'll be really fun for the 2nd graders going over there. And tomorrow, the 8th grade band at the middle school gets to play up at the football game with the high school band. So I'm sure that's going to be an amazing show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Also, tomorrow's football game is the Play for Your Cure game, which is sponsored by Project Hope, where they will be holding raffles and selling shirts to support cancer awareness, and the search for a cure. So another big reason to get out there tomorrow and support our home team, and I'm sure it's going to be a great time. Also at the high school, October 11th is a parent-teacher conference night, so all parents are welcome to come and meet their kids' teachers. And finally, the Milkmen's next show is October 11th. All donations will be going towards a family in the district who's struggling to keep up with medical bills. So, any attendance is very much appreciated, and obviously everyone's encouraged to donate, but it's obviously optional. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.
If you haven't seen Recycle Percussion, and you can get yourself into one of those, they're amazing. Two guys, they do a lot of work. They are New Hampshire kids, so they like to come back to New Hampshire even though they're in Las Vegas. They do enjoy coming back here, so thank you, Nick, that was great. Great. Keep up the good work for us.
Nice job.
Delegates and individuals. I'll remind our public, thank you all for being here again. This is a meeting of the school board that we hold in public. We're happy you are here. We have this individuals and delegations portion of all of our regular board meetings. It's an opportunity for you to bring comments on a topic that you think is important to us. However, our policy, which is BEDH, prescribes the length of time of about 3 minutes. I'm not going to use a stopwatch here at all, but be mindful of that we have business to do as well. This isn't a legal forum for you to bring complaints about an employee or or personnel or specific individuals, or to mention their job titles. Be mindful. Tonight we have students in the room. We're here to listen. We're here to be respectful, as we expect you to be respectful to us. If you have complaints or concerns about personnel or students, specific individuals, you should put those through the proper school district personnel, which would be, of course, our superintendent. We are happy you were here, and we know we'll all conduct ourselves civilly. So with that in mind, as the reminder, Mrs. Belcher she picked these up when she came in the room, and she numbered them. So I used that numbering system. So Corinne Martin from Plasto is the first on our list. Welcome, Corinne.
Thank you. Good evening. I am speaking tonight with a matter that charges me personally, but I also feel the need to speak up for other children and adults. I am sure that some of you received my email, and I'm sure that there will be more to follow. Parents, staff, elected officials, and multi-level administration are all involved in the education of minors in our communities. We are here to raise our children with the foundational and educational tools that they need to survive a sometimes harsh adult world. We need to remember to treat situations with fairness and equality, no matter the last name or who you're intimidated by. We need to put aside personal desires and interests, representing the majority voice of the population demographic interested in our youth and community. I have had outside agencies hear my call for help since it seems to have fallen through the cracks. It turns out that some matters are not just family matters, and policies and procedures of a school district and SAU need to reflect such with ensuring appropriate boundaries between staff and students. Tonight there is an agenda item regarding bullying. It seems that the topic of bullying impacts multiple roles here, outside of students. I'm not sure if that would be considered a matter that needs to be addressed with the TRSD, or if it's considered an SAU function. We all need to reflect when there is a perceived lack of clear lines of delineation with regard to personal and professional boundaries and power. I have heard this referred to as a corporation. Good corporations have strong leaders, ones that listen and innovate based on what the living body of the corporation needs, as well as having a code of ethics to follow. CEOs and corporate officials have been held accountable for conduct in and out of the boardroom. We have student representatives that are held to a certain level of decorum. All adults, elected officials, and those hired with any familial capacity to a student should be held to the same standard, with mutual respect and integrity. We should hold all students to the same level of consequence for similar offenses, despite their last name. Instead of reaching out to multiple sources of media and mongering fear among masses, we should be reaching out to each other. I watched a TRSB meeting from home one night and saw an adult sit at a table pointing a finger while yelling at an elected official across the table. They claimed that something wasn't said. I went back and after and in fact saw that that was exactly what was said. It made me lose respect for a public figure, lose faith and integrity and civility within our district, and it made me realize that my options appeared to be more limited due to the lack of faith that any issue I brought up would be handled with professional decorum and equality based on actions that have not helped to move us forward. Our kids are watching, and they're bright. I have personally seen students and adults post online. I quickly recognized that the students in our district were making a sardonic mockery of the adults' behavior and felt like they were needing to choose between gathering to fight for their teachers' jobs or complete their Achieve 3000 homework, while also being divided at the elementary school level. Although I can appreciate creativity and tenacity, we can do better, and it starts at the top with accountability. We need to put politics aside, or we need to step aside for those who will make it about the children. We shouldn't need these extremes in order to recognize a potential deficiency that is detrimental to the students we serve here under the umbrella of SAU 55. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Corinne. Maxine, sorry, I can't read, Maxine Dobson, I'm sorry. Welcome.
Thank you. With the start of the new school year and newly appointed reps, I think it's an appropriate time to ask the board to revise their JICK policy. Bullying has obviously been an issue within the district, and based on my personal experience, when it comes to addressing bullying, the district lacks follow-through, fails to mediate, misleads parents, does not provide proper communication, and lacks consistent discipline procedure. Other school districts like Derry have a very extensive policy where every allegation is reported and investigated. Schools like Goffstown display the incident report on their website for parents and students to have a point of reference. When we send our children to school, we expect them to be safe and cared for. We shouldn't have to rely on a school official to see something, say something, just to get a formal investigation when so many incidences start small and quickly escalate to major problems that just seem to get swept under the rug without any documentation. Parents should be allowed to play a part in every aspect of their child's schooling, and that requires communication with the administration. This policy needs to change to actually enforce this, because I can assure you it took over 2 years before someone finally stepped up on behalf of my child and filed a formal incident report. Not only was the communication missing, it seemed it was avoided at all costs, which you can obviously see can lead to parents who feel frustrated and helpless and situations that boil over. No one in the district wants that, and we should really come up with a policy to reflect how much the district cares about the emotional and physical well-being of its students. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. And Stephanie Doobie. Welcome, Mrs. Doobie.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I come before you tonight to present 188 signatures from residents of Atkinson, Danville, Sandown, and Plastow, who have all signed the SAU 55 withdrawal study petition. While I am the lead petitioner, there are many people who have worked very hard to get this message out and reach out to the residents regarding this petition, and I truly appreciate their efforts. 100 signatures were needed to enable this petition to be added to the ballot as a warrant article in March of 2019, and we nearly doubled this requirement in just a few short months. The petition and subsequent warrant article gives the voters of Timberlane information on the possible creation of an SAU withdrawal committee for the Timberlane Regional School District. The arrangement with Hampstead may have served its purpose, and we think it's time to see what options are available. A few points of note. Number one, this is not an us against them initiative and could be a very positive thing for our district as a whole. Number two, the schools in Timberlane will remain intact and the children's education would be unchanged. Number three, Timberlane owns the building which houses the SAU staff. Number four, Timberlane could have more control over the setting of salaries for the superintendent and administrators. Number five,
Timberlane's needs are vastly different from that of Hampstead's. And number 6, other schools in New Hampshire have left one SAU to form another for various reasons, showing this effort can and has been done. We will be hosting 1 to 2 community forums in the next few months to allow for open community dialogue. We will post these upcoming dates on the Speak Out SAU 55 Facebook page. This effort is all about local control and making sure the residents of the 4 towns in Timberlane all have the information they need to make an informed decision come next March. All in all, it makes sense to explore the idea of separation from Hampstead to determine what works best for Timberlane's district taxpayers, residents, parents, and students. Please note that I will be submitting these petitions to the SAU in order for this to appear, as a warrant article on the ballot in March.
Thank you, Mrs. Doobie.
Thank you.
Moving along to our business. We have a public hearing on a donation. So I am opening the public hearing at 7:53. Mr. Strange, are you making a presentation as part of the hearing?
Yes, just like to give some background in terms of the public notice that went out. This is a donation from Macy's Corporation. This came to us through our business partnership program. I'd like to thank Christopher O'Connor, the VP and store manager for Macy's at the Mall of Rockingham. He's the one who approached us regarding this. It'll be a donation through what they have as My Macy's District Community Outreach Program. What we did was we sat down, took a look at Macy's vision and mission, took a look at all of the programs that we have at our high school. They wanted to match their donation with their mission and vision and the things that we do at our schools. So what they're looking to do is to have this $5,000 go to the Cleaner, Greener Timberlane project, towards Project Hope, which is happening, part of it this Friday, but then also Strut for the Cure and other great things that Project Hope does throughout the course of the year. The Life of an Owl program, which focuses on leadership initiatives at our high school for all of our students, and the Timberlane Troops program, which supports veterans and currently serving families and those who are deployed abroad. So that's the sort of background of that, where that came from, and I will leave it to you then there to accept the donation at this point, or any conversations that you would like to have regarding it.
Questions? Yes, Lee?
How do you decide how the 5,000 is going to be split among the groups?
It'll go 2,000 to the Cleaner Greener, because there's 2 projects that we do, one in the fall, one in the spring, and then each of the other groups will get $1,000. And again, that's sitting down with them and matching it to their mission and vision of their corporation and what they want to do and how they want to reflect that. And again, because it's part of the business partnership program too, it's sort of the first step and a number of other things and ways that we can work together to help support either their work or our work here. And that's always been sort of the mantra of the business partnership program, is that it's not just a handout. We see how we can help them out as well in terms of placing interns. There's a number of different things that we've sort of said we can get to. We'll start here. They also have a volunteer program through their corporation, so if there's any events that they could volunteer at, their staff could come here and help us in those things. And again, we would go through all of the volunteer steps that we need to go through to get them cleared to be a part of those programs. So there's a number of different things. Fundraisers that they can do. They have something called the Dress for Success program, so they can come in and work with our business, national business, our business programs. They can work with the Business Society and talk about interviewing skills, how to dress for success, how to dress for interviews, et cetera, all those kinds of things. They do a wrapping program in the mall where you can have groups that go for a fundraiser and be at the wrapping table and raise money for their groups. So there's different ways that we can help each other and support each other through the work.
Excellent.
Other questions? Kim?
I'm sure you send something out to them to thank them, but I'm just wondering, it'd be nice to follow up with pictures or something from the activities and send it to them afterwards.
Of course, yes, thanks. Yes, thanks for reminding us of that.
Make a motion to accept the donation.
So we need to close the hearing, or can we do the motion within the hearing?
I think you can do it once you should see if there's any public input.
Public input before we accept the motion. Hearing none, I'll allow your motion,
more than happy
Mr.
to.
Boyle.
I'll second.
Mr. Boyle makes the motion to accept.
and also to send a letter of gratitude for
Absolutely.
the generous donation.
Well, certainly, thank you.
Mr. Doobie makes a second. Questions, comments? We do thank you for all your work too, Scott, working with partners to get this kind of thing to happen for us. So, and for our kids.
Thanks.
So, hearing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the donation? Looks like 9-0.
Thank you so much. I'll let them know tomorrow. Thanks.
So we're closing the hearing at 9:57.
7:50.
7, oh, geez, I'm already,
We'll tell you what happened in the next 2 hours. And I thought it was me.
Feels like 9 because we've been here since 6.
Oh my, I was like, already.
It's all right.
wow, you guys.
What's the score?
Yeah, so I'm already at the football game, yes, all right. So, hearing, that put poor Mr. Boyle. We have school action plans to hear from our elementary people, and I don't know, here they come. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight. I'm Nancy Barcelos from Danville School.
Hi, I'm Nancy Stafford, principal of Sandown North. I'm Michelle Ozier, principal at Pollard.
Kathy J. Lewis, principal at Atkinson.
Thank you for introducing yourselves to us. We have new members, sometimes we're not all sure on faces and names, so I appreciate the introductions around the table.
On the next slides, you're going to see our 17-18 student academic growth goals in the areas of early literacy, reading, and in math, as measured by our STAR benchmarking tool. Growth goals were set by each individual school and set at a pretty robust target. In fact, we increased the target from a growth percentile of 40 2 years ago to 50 last year. While our growth data goals are challenging and always something that we are striving to improve, we have seen that the percentage of students making fall, winter, and spring benchmark targets are notable. Yep.
That's the back one.
So just as, no, that's the next one.
Right.
Yep.
That was right.
So as a review, student achievement goals in math and literacy are measured by using STAR, and we use the student growth percentile. We'll refer to it as SGP in future slides. Timberlane's SGP target increased from 40 to 50 last year to align with higher expectations and accountability. Each school sets a goal, a percentage of students to reach that target of 50 SGP based on their review of their school-specific data. All students are included in this measure, and this allows us to monitor the growth of all students and compare growth with peers nationally. And each school has reflected on their data with teachers and have plans for how they will continue to address achievement areas in the upcoming school year. So we had a common literacy goal for students in grades 2 through 5, and the X percent in the first sentence represents the goal that you see represented in the middle line. So by June of 2018, each school had set a percentage of that percent number or more of all students in grades 2 through 5 to meet the SGP of 50 or greater in the area of reading. And it's noted that approximately 67% of all students in grades 2 through 5 district-wide scored at or above target on the STAR end-of-year benchmark, which was given in June of this past year. At Danville, we met in PLCs and we received extensive training on running effective meetings to analyze and respond to the data that was generated through targeted interventions. And we also documented our data through data walls And we use the STAR instructional planning reports to look at next steps for where we needed to go.
As Mrs. Barcelos spoke, we went from an SGP of 40 to 50, which was really stretching it, and it was a robust goal. Our staff spent lots of time reviewing the data and changing intervention groups to target specific literacy skills that were needed for improvement.
In math as well, we went from SGP going from 40 to 50, and all of the schools looked at the 60%. You'll see Sandown Central, that math piece isn't applicable with the pre-K and K. And you'll see that, again, approximately 77% of the students in grades 1 through 5 district-wide did score at or above the target on STAR end-of-year benchmarks. In terms of at Sandown North, we did a lot as well. All the elementary schools did around PLCs, looking more deeply into the data. We received additional training in terms of STAR custom assessments, so making those, again, more targeted towards student needs. And we spent a lot of time looking at those instructional reports. Again, the goal was consistent for this with all schools at 60%.
The third common goal that all the elementary schools had was around the tripod. And what we decided to do at all elementary schools was to focus on classroom management. As you can see, we measured that with the tripod survey, but also many different other activities. So the data is there's a lot of data up there, so let me just explain really quickly. So first of all, at every school there were 2 different assessments, 2 different tripods. One was given to our students K2, and the other one was given to our students 3-5. So Atkinson Academy, Danville, Pollard, and Sandown, the data's there. So if you look on the key to the right, you'll see that the average is about a 300, less than average is 280. So all of our schools stayed within that average score. I think at all the schools we did many great things. At Pollard, we focused, we had a superheroes theme that we used, and we tried to do as many possible things as we could that we focused on that, including our data wall. We, as a school staff, focused on our responsive classroom and trained our teachers in the responsive classroom and classroom management with a video series, which was very helpful. And there were many other things that we did that focused on those students in the classroom and classroom management. So next year, we're going to, again, try to do some common goals within our schools. And it's a common theme, but then each school, again, will be able to choose the specific data that they'll use to measure and what activities. So, again, we're going to be doing early literacy at our TLC at Sandown Central. And you'll see a math goal for the other elementary schools. We're all going to be working with reading as well, but this year, as a district, we're focusing on math, having a lot of professional development. So we felt that this would be an important goal for us to really focus on with our staff. We also have a teaching and learning goal. This will focus on the tripod survey, and then the culture, climate, and/or social emotional goal that we will all work around. So the verbiage is going to be just about the same for our schools, but we'll be able to all give it our own individual twists, which I think helps to have individual action plan goals. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mrs. Silva.
Yeah, comment and a question. I've always been impressed with the test scores and in looking at progress made across our district elementary schools. And I'm wondering, do the elementary schools, whether it's the administrative staff or the teachers, is there collaboration with the middle school when those fifth graders transition out, going up to the middle school to help keep that momentum going?
There absolutely is, and I would say in the last year or two, we've focused more on that. We've seen some dips, so we've tried to really work on that, and we absolutely have been doing that.
We spend a lot of time collaborating with the middle school. They come over, the guidance counselors come over, individual teachers come over and speak to our teachers. We spend time in that. The children spend a lot of time video conferencing with peer group from the middle school to sixth graders that they knew of, and in a lot of other activities that we've done. We do the band music program activities that we put together with the sixth graders and the fifth graders, so I think there's a lot of collaboration.
One of the things I'm excited about this year is that our new assistant principal is Christine DeRochers, and she had been the curriculum coordinator at the middle school. And so it's been really nice to have her in the building because she has that middle school, a really good grasp of that middle school piece, and that's been really helpful. So I know we've been tapping into that, and I'm sure we'll be tapping into her expertise some more.
Dr. Massey?
I could. You picked up on something. If you look back over the years, we would always have a dip in sixth grade, and there's been really a philosophical shift. What we were doing in sixth grade, it was really about bringing the four towns together, and it was about team building, a lot of that. And then the testing would come in at some point, and there was a lot of lost instruction because there was a lot of time spent on the teaming, getting comfortable there, those sorts of things. So the philosophical shift was let's get that happening a little bit more quickly, and let's get to business. So in the last couple of years, I think we've noticed a little bit of a an uptick, at least in the sixth grade scores. But that was something we were focusing on, back to Deb Armfield, and obviously with Christy, looking at data with our assessment teams.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was my concern, because I know over the years, I look at the elementary schools and I'm like, wow, they are really doing great work. And not to say that the middle school's not doing great work, but it just seemed like there's a big disconnect when you look at that academic piece.
I thought we were doing a good job with the fly-up and getting them comfortable, but we were taking, there was some lost ground there, and we wanted to kind of mitigate that, and I think we're in a much better place. But it really took a philosophical shift to hit the ground running, not to say we're not spending time making them comfortable and getting to know each other and those sorts of things, but there really was teaching and learning needs to take place, so. I commend the middle school for those efforts, and obviously,
It's nice to hear what's been happening the past couple of years, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Be interesting to follow the data along in the next couple of years and see how it goes. Kim, yes?
Just a couple things. I'm not sure, but I think there might be an error on the common goal number 2, math. I think that number at the bottom should be 59%, not 77%.
The goal isn't referring to the SGP. It's
Okay, because on the previous page, when I average that one, it works out.
One's a growth goal and the other is an achievement.
So this first one is approximately 67% achieved target, but they both say the same verbiage. I'm looking at the bottom, the first column at the first page, where it says common goal 1A is literacy.
just a coincidence.
It's approximately 67% achieved that, which I get if I average those four numbers.
Yeah, it's actually, those are two different measures.
Yeah.
So I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to take the SGP percentages and try to see if you're getting, you're trying to get an average for the achievement on the bottom. It may.
Kim, did you add them together and divide by 4?
Yeah.
They're two different.
Well, okay, so that's what's not clear to me then, because to me, I'm
It's not accurate to do
figuring
that.
that's what it was. Well, because it worked on the first page, but not the second.
It would be the percentage of all the students wouldn't necessarily be the percentages, that wouldn't necessarily work, right? If you added the 4 percentages, it wouldn't work the same as if one of those percentages.
No, but it's not working, I mean, even roughly, it's
Yeah, and
hugely
it's because
different.
those are two separate measures in STAR. One is an achievement, performance-based measure, and the other is a growth percentage.
Okay, great. So, And then let's go into tripod, because I do, this came up last year, because I know, certain schools, I don't even know, might have felt a little badly, because your score went down a little bit. Here's one score that goes down by 14. We did look at the margin of error on this survey, Christy, right? And it is huge. Isn't it something like plus or minus 40 points? Okay, so I do want you to be aware of that.
They are aware of that.
Okay, good. Well, I want the public to be aware of it too, because somebody looks at this data and says, wow, your school went down 14 points. It's really, it's within the margin of error. So I just want people to be aware of that. It's noise.
And that standard deviation is actually helpful to us because it allows us to identify those stronger areas and our areas of weakness. If that standard deviation were any closer together, it would be really hard for us to ascertain which of those 7C areas were areas of strength and which were areas of weakness. Both as a school, it would be difficult, but our individual teachers get their individual results. They're creating they're creating their own goals based on their individual results, and those individual goals are helping to contribute to our school goals. So, again, I know I wasn't able to speak to that much on that evening, but I've also done some research with regard to that standard deviation, and the fact that it is larger is actually a good thing for us.
Right. As you look down deeper into the data.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so when you're looking at the culmination, it's misleading in a way. Well, I mean, because you don't, anyway, so. And I appreciate that you had robust goals and increases from the previous years. This is kind of a loaded question. What is it you need as principals to get these scores up? I mean, I know there, in the budget last year, there were interventionalists, right, for math across the board that were removed from the budget. Is this, if you could wave a magic wand and say, school board, what is the thing you would need the most?
I think that it's very difficult to be able to handle all of our students at the RTI level when we're trying to differentiate with our higher and low kids. So extra bodies, teacher bodies, are also a helpful thing. Most of us are Title I schools, Kathy's not, so we do have some interventionists that help us at that level. But I think
the decreases in our
for the decreases that are going on at the state level, we're all feeling the pain there. So it would be helpful to be able to have more of those interventionist positions to assist. But there's many other things. I think that we're working hard. I'm very excited, as I know everybody on this table is, that the training that we're having, our teachers are extremely excited about the training they've had so far in the area of math. I've already seen some major changes in their instruction, and I know that will increase, and it's only going to want to engage our kids more.
And who's doing the math training? Is this from the high school down, or is this somebody externally coming in?
We are using an outside trainer that worked with our teachers at the end of August. We had shared with you sort of some differentiated training that we were able to provide our teachers. That was one of the options that we had specifically for the elementary teachers. It's a math workshop model, which is very similar to their writing and reading workshop model, so they were able to really, they responded well to it because it was a model that they were familiar with.
Okay, right. And another, along the same lines, I hope we're going to do the same sort of thing with the science education.
We're doing that right now.
Good,
Right
because
now.
that's near and dear to my heart also. Okay, thank you.
Late.
So the data's great. I love it. There's a disparity in achieving the goals amongst the schools. So I'm wondering, what are you doing as part of your post-assessment analysis to share best practices and how the teaching styles may differ, or what tools are being used to kind of level that off?
I think a lot of the work we did around PLCs last year helped immensely in terms of getting staff, more educators more comfortable in terms of diving into the data. And I noticed a big shift this year when our PLC started. Teachers just jumped right in and felt a lot more comfortable with the reports, and with the SGP too. They want to be looking closer at those numbers and how the kids, looking at those kids right away who aren't who haven't met the 50 SGP and looking at how they can group those students and right away starting to get those interventions in. It just, I think it's more targeted, and they're starting to, I think all the math training that they're getting is going to really help too. Having it right before the start of the school year, I was amazed at how much they just grabbed those ideas from the trainer and were excited to get started and in the different groups. And I think it makes a lot more sense for the kids too.
Is that an area where the interventionists would be more helpful?
Oh, yeah.
That and in reading.
I think additionally, the administration team meets very often during the month to go over, not only our individual school data, but we look at as a whole, where are our holes? What are we doing really well in? Where are our holes? And trying to collaborate, work together, find some commonalities, some areas of strength that we can help support each other in so that we can continue to move forward. Because obviously we do want to get better. And there's a lot of talent on the team, and we rely on each other, and we have guidance from Christy and from our new administration team that's supporting us.
Thank you.
We're clear, everybody, on what a PLC is, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
these great
Jargon.
educators throw around some of their private language to us, and they're all smiling at me now. But, sometimes you have to get up to speed on the letters they use, so. Thank you. Anybody else? We thank you for the information.
Thank
Looks
you.
like you've got a great start on the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you find out what the score is?
Minutes are,
You sure?
oh, I'm good.
Point of vice chairman's
All right.
privilege.
All right.
Ask what the score is for the football game.
All right, whatever. I can't miss that late.
Keep working. You want to keep working.
Going.
Or Brian.
Game starts at halftime. Can't go back.
We are ready to move on. Move on to our presentation on bullying procedure.
If I could?
Yes.
So Susan's here, and I think and Dan is with you, which is great.
Dan is.
I appreciated your patience. I know this is something we talked about late last year, and we wanted to kind of get it. We talked about August or September, but we had a final piece of this that we were exploring, which was I had attended a conference over the summer, and this was a major focus. Was this? We'll get to this program called No Bully when we get to our procedure, but we were also chasing some funding. Well, Susan was chasing some funding, so we were able to get the funding through a grant. So that it would be a comprehensive thing. So we talk about what we've been doing and what we think will get better, because we really felt like this was, the student on student, but we felt it was much bigger than that. We felt it was, teachers and paras and administrators and parents and the community, this program. So that, again, I just wanted to thank you for your patience. I know that you had expected this much earlier, but this kind of wraps it up, so it's a little more comprehensive of a presentation than perhaps we would have done if we did it in late August. So thank you. So Susan?
Thank you. So I'm here this evening to present the bullying procedure. I also wanted to introduce Daniel Woodworth. He's our new Student Services Coordinator. And so this evening, we're going to take apart to present a very comprehensive process to you regarding bullying.
All right.
Mm-hmm. You gonna do it? Mm-hmm. So the first part is the responsibilities of the school. When we look to the process, the law is very clear in that there are two pieces. You need to have a report come in, and then you need to investigate that report when you receive it. And then once that is received, there's a process we go through in terms of notifying the parties that are involved. We provide at the building level the investigation. Principals make a determination, and then action is taken. All of this information is confidential.
So it's something that oftentimes people would like us to share more information, but we really are not able to do that because of the level of confidentiality we have to hold.
So picking apart kind of the investigation process a little closer. So obviously once it begins, it begins once that report is made. Once the report is in the hands of the administration, they have 5 days to initiate that investigation. And kind of a little briefer, they have kind of a 48-hour window to notify those parties involved that the investigation is going to be occurring. That involves perpetrator letters, victim letters, the notification, certainly alleged perpetrator, or we should say, we don't want to make that accusation, but that in the law is kind of how it's verbed as perpetrator letters. So the administration does have that option of kind of being removed from that and replaced by a designee should they have any kind of personal reasons why that wouldn't be appropriate for them to be carrying out that. So once the investigation does begin, certainly a big part of it is the interviewing of all the parties that are involved. Depending on the situation, that can be just a few individuals, that can be very many individuals, that can grow to a very large number of individuals depending on where those interviews go. In addition to the interviews, administration can ask for evidence to provided that can include printouts of emails or online communication or even screenshots. Again, kind of follow the path of those interviews in the direction as it goes to try to paint as much of a picture as they can or can be made available to them. So within 5 school days of initiating that investigation, they try to complete it. Certainly there are situations where they can request an extension of that investigation. Most common would probably be a snow day would be a good example of why we would need more time. But sometimes, again, it's just because the path that it leads you down becomes long. And you don't want to miss anything when you're making decisions as sensitive as this. And then, of course, it culminates in a determination of either a substantiated incidents of bullying or unsubstantiated.
So in terms of the follow-up, a building level principal or administrator, the designee, determines whether it's a substantiated report of bullying or unsubstantiated. In the case of an unsubstantiated report, parties are notified that are involved. Our district, I will say, does a very nice job in terms of doing an individual phone call to let parents know ahead of time that a letter will be coming. And oftentimes they're able to discuss with parents other options and alternatives that they may not have considered at the time. So whether it's the perpetrator or the victim, a phone call goes out, and building level administration is very consistent with that. Notify the superintendent and designee, and then we work to resolve and develop a positive social emotional learning opportunity for the students. This is not in the law, but it's something we have done consistently, because the reoccurring theme that we see is that oftentimes children aren't even aware of an appropriate, socially appropriate way to behave and respond. And we'll bring that up a little bit later in the presentation as well. So one of the reoccurring themes is that children just need direct, explicit instruction on how to behave and how to respond. And that was something that's been consistent for the past 2 years in the reports that we've seen.
So with substantiated cases, certainly in many ways it's the same follow-up. There's a notification process to all the involved parties, phone calls, send letters, make sure everyone understands what came to our decision. Then notifying the superintendent or designee. Certainly when it is a substantiated case, there is a DOE involvement in terms of monitoring, updating the I4C. But the biggest change, obviously, is kind of the action that is taken in a substantiated case towards unsubstantiated. So that can take, obviously, counseling services, mentoring, peer mediation, punishment, reinforcement, whatever the situation kind of dictates. So a lot of options kind of in that area. But again, same idea, working with the parties involved to promote the positive social emotional learning and hopes to prevent things from happening in the future. So And again, all this policy, the JIC, is consistent with kind of the RSA of the state. You know, it's kind of one and the same, so. There's a delay in this. There we go.
So as a result of collecting the information from the bullying situations that we've had here, we really found some reoccurring themes. Parents asking for help, community members seeing some of the situations that we were seeing, looking for solutions as well. And as Dr. Metzler had stated, we found a program, No Bully. One of the strengths of this program is that it's taking the strengths of the current program and building capacity within our district. So there's leadership coaching, No Bullying Foundation training, then Bullying Proof Your Kids, which involves parents and the community to help them become more resilient and learn ways to support themselves. There's also a component to that in bully proofing your child that is talking to bystanders and empowering them to also report. Solution coaching training, and then the culminating activity for the 18-19 school year would be a peace summit, and you are all cordially invited to be part of that. I think the stronger the community, the better we are at role modeling for all our kids how tremendously important a safe and responsible environment is. This part of our first year program, in working with Charlie George, he is a significant contributor to a grant that we have. He is fully funding the first year. In 2019, 2020, the second year of the program is really beginning the work and now generalizing it from our school to our district and then out into the community. And that's the leadership coaching, the conflict resolution training, social emotional learning, and that's where we have parent and guardian workshops. There are a significant amount of grandparents who are also involved as a part of the court system in terms of now raising their children's children, and we're going to make a concerted effort to support them. Again, social emotional learning, the teaching and staff workshops will also be included. Second year, I am requesting that it be funded through the Student Services Department. And that concludes the presentation.
What made this program something that jumped out to you as being something we should involve ourselves in? Or
because it validates the strengths of the program, but it also empowers the professionals that we have to work together. It builds a common understanding of how to behave and what to do when you're not seeing the treatment of the behavior that way. It's really building a more collaborative culture where everybody responds to a situation, may not be in the exact same way, but they're actually following the same guidelines to keep it a cohesive piece.
so who's going to do this, the leadership coaching?
It's the leadership coaching is done by the outside consultant.
Okay.
And they are actually in the process of a West Ed research project, which is extensive. It happens more, the research that West Ed does is more prevalent in Massachusetts, but when they report, they don't take on projects that they are, they're looking to promote nationally. So this program is part of West Ed.
Yes.
The second part of that is the conference is that I'm a member of the National Superintendent's Roundtable, so I actually was at a table with colleagues that use this program. So it wasn't about a sales pitch from a vendor, and they talked about the impact it had on the community well beyond. It was far more, I guess what I got from it was far more proactive than reactive. So there's a lot of what do you do after it happens, and this felt like, all right, well, we respond, but what can we do on the front end of things? And they were just impressed with the trainers and the people involved, and it had some great success getting community buy-in and having everyone involved in it. So I was convinced, and it wasn't just one; it was several people that are using it in different districts. So,
Other comments or questions? Jen, then Sheila.
I appreciate hearing that it's proactive and not reactive. I know, Ms. Brasco, probably a couple years it's been, but that, when I spoke with you, that was one of my big questions. What do we as a district do proactively versus being reactive after something happens. And when I look at these slides, I just want to make sure I understand. So, parent notification, every parent, whether something they report is substantiated or not, will get a written letter stating, yes, it's been substantiated, whatever, or no, it hasn't been, and this is why.
That's correct, but it would only go to the perpetrator and the victim. So there may be individuals that aren't accused, but they have information, and then the findings wouldn't be shared with them. And I think that's part of the frustrating process, is that they've contributed information, but they don't know the outcome. So we really are just trying to work with the victim and the perpetrator, which aligns itself to the law.
No, that's fine. I feel like I've heard from a lot of parents over the past couple of years who felt that they're not getting that written feedback after they've reported a concern. So I just want to make sure going forward, every parent.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that would help a lot of our community concerns, that the two individuals, or three, aren't getting the information. Parents aren't getting that communication. I hear it over and over and over again. Communication, communication, communication. Not, if I want to share with my neighbor what happened to my child, that's completely between my neighbor and I. I understand that piece.
Correct.
But if a witness, you've called in a witness, that individual is not going to get notification about the outcome.
Correct.
If I could?
I'm going to let Sheila and then come back to you.
I actually have a few questions, so
Sure.
I apologize ahead of time.
How many? Because no.
Can you give me just what this is costing, so we know for the budget for?
I can. It's $132,000 for 2 years. $72,000 has been funded through the grant. And I am putting into my budget $60,000 for the second year.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But the caveat to that was, we're still trying to get that
Correct. It could
funded.
be
It's just we couldn't
funded.
guarantee the grant the second year, but it was still.
That's right.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
make sure that it's there. That's all.
Another question?
Yes, one more question, please. What I am hearing, besides Jen, parents don't understand. They think they pick up the phone and they make a call to the principal and everything's handled. And then 2 weeks later, something else happens. I would like to see on top of all this, some kind of instruction under the parent tab on every single school. If you think your child is being bullied, these are your steps. I'm a firm believer in putting it in writing, because I'm a firm believer in, even if it's not substantiated, but it goes to say it's not going to happen in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks afterwards, and then maybe we have a pattern. So I really would like to see something built on the websites. Maybe even, this is the information we would need, the day, the time, when you're writing to us and you're going to give this to the principal. This way it's a paper trail. This way they're going to get an answer back, paper trail. And God forbid it happens again, they've got that paper trail to fall back on. But I really don't believe, you see it all the time, and I hate to say it on social media, oh, what do I do, my kid, this and that. You got to put it in writing, you got to contact the building principals, you have to, this is how you should be doing it. And I don't think there's enough information out there for parents, to be honest with you.
So it goes back to our communication piece again.
That was,
Thank you, Sheila, for that. Earl and then Kim.
that was, my point was that what we're striving for is some consistency, and that
Right.
guarantees consistency.
Right.
And so,
Right.
everybody understands they're situational, and then you have the personal style of people, how they respond and react, but we want to systemize it. And that was really one of the driving forces. Okay, well, we don't have a Timberline system per se, we have the way we react, but I think the program coming in will help us formalize exactly what you're talking about in terms of a system where it doesn't matter what school you go to, right? So
Everything's uniformed, everybody reacts the same way, everybody, So that this way it's uniform from K all the way through 12.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we've worked hard on that in terms of, not, and you and I have talked about this in the past, not having, the elementary talking, one thing, and then the middle school is a completely different
Right.
philosophical belief, and then the high school was different. We've gotten better at a K through 12 system, but this is something that, I'm with you, we needed work on it, and that's why I asked Susan. So I think we'll get there. I think this program will help us get there, and that will help it make user-friendly for parents, I think.
But I think, too, your suggestion is well taken, that under Parent Resource tab, for every school, we could have
Just
that
something
information.
that you need, if you have an issue.
Yep.
These are the things we will need. Please, put it in writing, or a form. It doesn't have to be the JIC form. It could be something totally generic that you guys make up that just gives the day, the time, the incident, something so that they know what you're looking for to be able to look at the issue.
I
Does that
would
make
take that
sense?
one step further, and if you do create that form on the parent information tab, put a link to JIC. So then they're informed of what the process is going to look like once they submit the form.
Thank you.
I think you need to have even more information than just the link to JIC. I mean, to understand JIC, you are basically an attorney, because JIC policy is the law, rewritten. It's not broken down for people to understand, and what happens is you have parents that have no legal background, and even with a legal background, unless you are an education attorney, it is an impossible policy to follow. That is 3/4 of the frustration. I've had the opportunity to talk to several parents over the last few weeks, and that's what I'm getting. Failure to communicate, lack of information, no guidance on what to do, lack of follow-through, lack of consistency with what's investigated. Parents report things aren't investigated. They're, something that can be bullying over here isn't bullying over here. And those are all the problems, and that's what's happening, is that people just don't know what to do. And then, as Mr. Woodworth pointed out, you have a policy that talks about 5 days to do this and 5 days, but when the parents don't hear in that 5 days, or that policy isn't being followed, or that 5-day investigation that might take 2 all the other time suddenly takes 25, there becomes a big problem. Why? I mean, you don't have 25 snow days. So you have other issues that can come up, understandable, but there is not any, we're not holding uniform. JIC is a law, it follows the New Hampshire statute basically verbatim, but what are we doing as a district to take it a step further? We're following the law as a basic, because that's required. We're not doing anything above and beyond to communicate with our parents, pull them in. I'm hoping that this is what this program is going to do. But at that time, while we're implementing it, we're still failing. We're failing our community. We're failing our children. We're failing everyone miserably, in my opinion. Things that have, we all know, things that have happened shouldn't have happened. Ways that they went. They could have been handled a lot better in many situations. And I just have a lot of concern that we just are doing the bare minimum. Again, I'm glad to hear we're doing this program. I'm hoping it does these things, but lack of communication is absolutely huge. Parents feel misled. Parents don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn when they can't get the information. And again, having some sort of a form where you can jump on and put that out there. But if a parent takes the time to fill out a form, as you're suggesting, they're going to expect something back. They're going to expect that everything they put out there is investigated, not we're going to pick and choose or we're going to do this or that, because the parents have a legitimate concern. And I don't think any of that is happening right now. So my concern is that while we're implementing this new program, what's happening in the meantime to try to clean up the mess and streamline it to alleviate those concerns for people.
If I could just speak to the communication piece, as a former building person that took care of discipline, I know what paralyzes these folks. It's what can I share when it has to do with someone else's child? Because it's usually a conflict with, and everybody wants to know what happened to the other child. And then I think they get to the point where they don't share anything, and so that brings people to frustration. You have to kind of figure out what can they share legally and what shouldn't they share. And I think they get paralyzed and share nothing. That's just my own take on it. Because I can tell you, a lot of times I would say, I would just tell the parent what happened to the other kid. You cross your fingers and hope it's okay.
What do we share in this district?
Well, that's,
In terms of the discipline that's actually given,
No,
You want-
I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead. You were waiting patiently. You should have just-
That's okay. My concern is, I don't think this program is going to give you what you're thinking of, Kristen, and what I would like to see, because you said it so succinctly, and you'd have to rewind the tape to get this, I think, because I didn't write it down. You listed about 6 things that we are not doing to assist our parents in being able to navigate through a legal policy that no one, probably, as you said, other than an education lawyer, can navigate through. I would like, and this is my opinion, but maybe the board can discuss it, as an action item, that you go back to what that was, that list of things, and in a month, 2 months, come back to us and say, this is what we're doing, because those, clearly, you've put a lot of thought into this, and those are the things from a parent point of view is what we need and what we're not getting for the parents. Because I know, obviously it's changed. I had a situation with my own daughter. I wasn't even informed. My daughter informed me, and I went ballistic, as you can imagine. So, not me. And one other point, you
Kim,
know.
can we stand up just for 1 sec? Because just before you get to your second point, this can be tailored to meet the needs of this district. So this isn't just a cookie cutter, this is what you have to do. So the needs are our needs, and I have the faith that we're going to meet those needs. And so, you know, you're right, they were clearly, those are all things that we have spoken about what we need. So this isn't just like it's not a cookie cutter, so it's not the same in every.
I understand, but I don't know if this sort of program is going to get into the sort of nitty-gritty about rewriting this.
They'll do what we ask them to do. So it gets tailored to meet our needs. And we have unique, well, I don't say unique, we have needs that would be different than other districts.
Right.
Mrs. Savage, would you be willing to put those things in writing? Excuse me?
Sure.
Yeah. And I can't hear you when you're not looking at me. And get those to myself, and I will get them to Mrs. Rassico.
Absolutely.
I think
Thank
there's
you.
some good points there. I think Kim's point about, I'd like to hear back. I was going to make that as a suggestion that we consider January. I mean, you would have to give me a time frame of, let us know how this is going. We're very interested in this. We're not just one and done here.
No.
We
Right.
need to keep hearing about this. I think Sheila's idea of I know sometimes those portals and those websites, schools can be extremely difficult to navigate too.
Right into the
But
parents.
put it down and, we're not hiding how to get help.
No.
But I would like to take it off social media, asking, that's not the place we should be conducting our, letting the school know that we've got some concerns.
And unfortunately, I don't
Help
use
us to do
Facebook,
it.
so there's no way for
No,
me to
I
even
just
get
think-
that information.
Yeah. and not
We,
me.
we need to get before the report.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
We started it seems like we started the report here. I want to go before the report.
She wants how to get to the report.
I want to know how to get to the report. I want the parents to be able to navigate how to report an incident so that the school is looking at it, not a phone call, not a.
I get that. I get that.
You know what
I
I'm saying?
understood.
So, Kim, you want to finish your thought? We'll go back to Jen.
Yeah, just one thing, because this came up over the summer, and the superintendent's probably, have you heard of a group called K-12 Insight that?
I actually, I reached out to the same folks. They were a part of the superintendent's roundtable years ago. They're not now, trying to get some information on different programs. That was one of the programs.
Because they have something which, simplistically is almost like a Craigslist where you go to the school website and you can put in, I don't know, some sort of question or something, and then it anonymously kind of sends your email forward, like a Craigslist thing. It's not your email, but it will, when you respond, it will go back to that person. So it creates some level of anonymity, but it also helps you in terms of tracking, wow, we had 50 questions about what to do about bullying this week, or whatever, not this week, I'm sorry. And it helps you monitor where your gaps might be in your different facilities or staffing or something like that. I did speak to the fellow over the summer, and I know.
I couldn't get a person. That's why.
I spoke to him too.
We have
Yeah, Kim and I
contact
spoke to him,
information.
and I gave him all the contact people here too. that he could speak to.
I know schools in Massachusetts use this, and they
Yeah.
find it very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
That was what I noticed on the site, you know, that's the typical process here in a sense, like when, I don't tell them like this is the program usually I'll meet and then I'll give it to the particular person, whether it's Ken Henderson, whether it's Susan, whatever. Hey, look at this, you know, research this and tell me if this is something we think we can benefit from. So that's why I was happy with this program.
Right.
I guess maybe that's another program we could
At
take a
least
look
look,
at.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
K
If I
12
could-
Insight.
Insights.
And it's similar to one of those other programs that I had shared with you a year ago in terms of, because we're talking about community input.
Right.
Right, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
for-
you can
yeah,
use it
it's
for
that
different
piece of
things.
it.
The other company, and you may want to take a look, it's called Thoughtful Exchange. It's, I don't think it's as expensive. And it's, that was.
Thoughtful Exchange?
Thoughtful Exchange with another company. I think they're out of Canada, I think. I'm not sure, but.
I don't know.
It's similar kind of getting, systemizing the way you can get feedback from folks.
Other questions before, because we've given these people some marching orders here, so, Jen, I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, over, say, the next 30 days, what action steps will you be taking? I think people want to, I mean, we've been waiting a long time for this, I think people want to hear. So what are we doing? What can we
A
expect
few
to see in the
things.
next?
You can
say,
expect
30
to
days?
see November 27th. TILA administrators will be meeting in the SAU 2-hour plan of time, meeting with the consultants, and beginning the work of Phase 1. We also have a TPATH forum in which they will actually be live streaming the parent community component to train parents, guardians, grandparents regarding this program. So that's a start.
That's in the next couple of
We
weeks.
have a date on that yet?
November
TPATH
27th.
No, the TPAF, I'm sorry.
Both are the
Both
same.
are gonna be
Well,
that
the
day, I'm
TPATH
sorry.
is at night, that's why. So the TILA will be during the day for our administrators, and then the TPATH is at night.
So stating the obvious, if we're training parents, we should have this piece done.
Yeah,
This is how you report
correct.
Sure.
to schools, right?
Yep.
Because that would be the training. That's really
That would be,
what they need.
that would be a great piece, but I also like the idea of having it in the Parent Resource Center, because we also have, under the tabs of Parent Resource, other pieces. So when parents are dealing with grief or loss, and parents are reporting that they use that quite frequently, unfortunately, but it's easy for them to find now. And Ken has done a nice job in terms of reworking our website so that they click and it's right there. So I think that's a point well taken, something we can definitely work on.
Thank you.
Kristen.
Couple of things, Sue. As Sheila was saying about getting before the reporting and getting that information out there, and we talked about this with the strategic plan. What are we doing about trying to educate people, parents and children and teachers, about the different levels? I mean, somebody comes in and Johnny got picked on and suddenly it's bullying. It's not necessarily bullying.
Right.
I mean, you have to look at every situation, so not everything is going to rise to bullying. We have normal social behavior, peer conflict, bullying, and then you get into criminal. So
Right.
you have this whole level. What are we doing to create some sort of a system or a tier? Because we talked about it with the strategic plan, that
Yep.
we're going to do something like that. When is that going to start to happen? That parents can start to see something like that and start to learn from that ability. Yep.
So, to that very point, the superintendent's leadership team, we had a lengthy discussion about this in terms of if there are some curricular changes that need to be made, we'll work those out through curriculum and assessment. So those will go to CNA if there are things with character education that we need to work on. So that was part of the plan in terms of something being proactive. You know, what are we currently doing? We obviously know we need to do more,
Yeah.
and whose responsibility.
Right. We also have, through our school counselors, they actually have the second step curriculum, and that's really working with them on how to behave, behavior pieces, and there's a tier 3 to that. So there's a classroom component, then there's a small group component, and then an individual. But I think in terms of focusing on peer conflict versus bullying or a stage of bullying or something that's legal, that's really what we're doing now at the building level, working with kids who are doing activities that are not good and working with the families. So we do address it, but the way that we would address it would be respectful of the parents. We also have grandparents we're working with now, because things that they handled when they were raising their children are much different now as they're trying to cope with their grandchildren. And we have a program that we're not directly involved with, but SOROC is, and it's called PASTA, Parenting a Second Time, and that meets on a monthly basis, and grandparents are saying that that's a great help to them because it's really a group support network. They're learning how to parent all over again in new situations.
And working with them is great, but I guess my point is going back to the report. It's a place for people to go. I mean, somewhere where they can go under that parent tab and have some sort of a breakdown, because not everyone just hears that word bullying or something bad happens and they just label it that. And that's what our problem is, as you know, as we've heard.
Right.
The problem is it just gets labeled and people run with it one way or the other. Maybe it is, maybe it's not.
Right.
But not everything is.
Right.
And there has to be some differentiation, some education to the parents that jump on that tab, so then they're not just hitting these forms constantly, bullying, 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 and maybe you have to give them some sort of a choice. You know, do you think it's this, or this, or like a first instance, something to look into?
I was going to add
I'm
that
playing chair,
one of the
sorry.
things that you could put in there is like case studies and stuff. Is like, for an example, you know, John and Jane Doe are in the classroom and go out the experiment. This would be bullying. This is not bullying, and then you go through the different
And
characterizations.
every instance will be different, but at least to give people a framework and something so that they're not jumping out there and becoming alarmists. I think I beat on that, but I wanted to follow up on, the comment was made that everything's going onto social media to be dealt with, and I disagree with that, actually. The problem is people are going to the schools. They're going and they're looking for information and they're looking for answers and they're not getting it. That's when it goes to social media. People are not running to social media as their first choice. It's
cause and effect
It's to a point where they feel like they have hit the end of the rope and there's nothing more they can do. And that's the way to get attention. And that's a problem, because if we're letting it get from it's being reported to something happening for this long period of time, that these people are getting so frustrated that that's their only choice, and they are throwing kids under the bus, their own kids and whatever, that's a huge problem. So we're failing somewhere along the way there, and we have to stop that. And I know the comment was made that, you know, intervention and getting things beforehand, that's not always happening. So what are we doing with our administrators to make sure that they are doing that and that they're getting involved beforehand? Because personal experience, it happens. You mention something and it's not getting taken care of at that level. It's kind of, well, we'll deal one way or another. And I think we need to use these more as teaching moments, as areas where we can sit down with people, sit down with everyone, and work with people to try to get them to understand it, because it's the lack of understanding that causes the frustration, and then it amounts to a bigger problem. And I think just so much could be handled differently. And then one more thing to say. I know we're sending out letters and we're saying that we're sending them out and we're protecting people, but we're not. Letters have come out of these buildings with kids' names on them that shouldn't. And that leads to another problem. That leads to accusations or misunderstandings or beliefs that, you know, Susie did this when Susie didn't, but her name was on something. That's a problem. Because then when you get a letter that says, oh, this one corrects the last one, and it suddenly doesn't have the name there, the damage is done. And it's being done from in here. So how will maybe you need to have a system of checks and balances too, to make sure that those letters are not getting out to the public.
We are looking at that, and that's part of our first year piece. I think the other piece that we found very helpful was a forum that we had at the end of last year. There were a few incidents of bullying that were reported. One of them actually took us 3 months to the end of the year. It was a bus incident, but the building administrator stayed with it, including riding the bus and making sure that the behaviors were monitored. But during that time, they also took it as a teaching moment to show students what respect looks like. Not telling them what they should see, but actually showing them what respect looks like. So there are issues that we're addressing. I would never come before you and say it's a perfect system, but I think that the TPATH presentation that we did last year is something that I'm going to put on the parent resources, because that was one area that I feel parents responded well to. Unfortunately, it wasn't heavily attended, but it was live streamed, and there were a lot of questions that I received at my office after that. So I think putting that on the parent resource tab is also going to be something. Some of the other pieces, I think that, you know, we're all trying to learn. I mean, all of us have a form or a sense of balance, and I think that the first-year program is going to bring everybody together. But I think the Power in the Peace Summit of everybody coming together with common understandings and a standard method of operation is going to be a very important piece. I also feel as though having families together. I mentioned the social emotional learning curriculum that we have through our school counselors. There are home activities, but parents are busy, and I think we do need to change our approach in some ways, and I'm hoping that this program will allow that to happen. But we are going to need a lot of parent involvement, including in the TPATH, whether they're in front of their TV or they're watching it taped, but they really need that information, and that's one way that we'll send it out.
One more comment, and then we're going to move along, I think. Go ahead, Dr. Metzler.
Okay, part of, several things. First of all, where does it happen? So you hear the word TILA that gets thrown out, and that's the Timberlane Executive Leadership Academy, and that's where the training takes place. So as we identify weaknesses that need to be addressed, this is one of those places. The other part was this board authorized me to reorganize the administrative staff. So I want you to think of an administrator, some are really good at management and dealing with student discipline and things like this, and others are curriculum folks. And so part of that entire reorganization, we have people that are specializing in the curriculum development in this district, and other people that are working on student discipline and management of the buildings. So we've differentiated the job descriptions to some degree, what assistant principal is handling what are their curriculum responsibilities, what are their responsibilities in terms of management. And just being honest, I mean, it's like some people are really good at one or the other, they're not necessarily good at both. And then you throw a third thing in there in terms of special ed. And the final piece is, this is not like a one-shot wonder. I'll talk to you about our essay contest, and when you see what the topics are, you're going to realize that you're going to see very quickly that this is part of it. So it's a theme that we're trying to run through the district in every way we possibly can. So those are teachable moments leading up to the essays that all the students write, and then we select winners. Those winners will come before you in November at some point during National Education Week. And when you hear the themes that they're responding to, it's really part of this. And we want to take that through the whole year, right? And just make it part of the climate and culture here. Make it just part of what we do, embedded into the curriculum. And some are programs, and some are, what do I do in my reading class? What do I do in my, are there places where this is appropriate? Social studies or different times so it's part of what we do, who we are. It's not just. We're not just trying to slap a cookie-cutter program on it and say that'll fix everything.
Right.
We understand that these issues run wide and deep, and there's a lot of work to be done. And sometimes at the building, we have to pull it out of the building, and those things end up here with Ms. Rasco and Mr. Woodworth. They don't all end up here,
Right.
But perhaps you'll take more of a supervisory role as to what goes out from the buildings. Maybe that may be part of our system moving forward. It needs to come here first before it goes out. I don't know. But those are things that will get worked out real soon.
Right.
Real soon. So thank you.
Sean?
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Metzler, who writes the letters to, if a parent's filed, a complaint, who generates the letters? Does that come from the person that's doing the investigation? They would write the letter and then just send it right to
Usually the building administrator.
All right.
And
Well,
typically, they're doing a phone call out to the victim and the perpetrator, and then letting them know there's a letter coming.
but it's just one person. What I was trying to tag on is what Kristen was saying is that, the information you can see, the more individuals that do something like this, the more you're going to have different styles and inconsistencies that are not generally, I would say, accepted that you want to have, if you're talking about other students in this one. I don't know what the volume of letters that go out of here for these issues, but maybe that's something that you would bring up, do the draft. This is what I want to send. It goes up to your office. If you're dealing with, 4 or 5 of these a week, I don't even know what the volume is. So maybe that's something that you would like to, on your side, to look at, to see what's going to be sent on out.
I think that's what I alluded to. And the only example I could give you is as a high school principal, when I first got there, I had 15 different people writing incident reports. And very quickly I was like, I don't want 15 different people writing the incident reports. I want one person writing the incident reports. I'm not writing them, but I want one person writing them. So you assign it to a place. So that's checks and balancing piece that I think, if that's happened a few times, then a few times is way too many times. So, that's probably something that you may want to look into in terms of supervisory about the letters that go out.
But sure. And to follow that up with Sean's,
Mrs. Savage?
sorry, to follow up Sean's comment, it should be one source. If it's going to be your building administrator, it should be your building administrator. It shouldn't be the SAU and some letters and your building administrators and others. because that's what you're getting too. It's confusing to people because then they don't know where do they go to. If there's a question, do they go back to the SAU? Do they go to building principal? Do they go to the building principal that wrote the letter on the SAU letterhead? Or do they go to, so there's the
Right.
uniformity is not there.
Correct, and that's something we need to clean up, but what has happened in the past, just why that happens, if something started to get controversial, wrong word, it just wasn't being handled correctly, it was pulled out of the building and was given to Ms. Rassico, and that would be the ones that would be here, not to create confusion, it was just, okay, that's not going well. You know, parents may even say, I don't want the building doing it, I want, you know, sometimes it's a parent request, they want it out of the building.
But then they go back to the building principal, the
I know,
same
and that-
issue.
yeah, that doesn't help.
And you get the corrective letter from the building principal on the letterhead from, so it's,
And then eventually I get
nobody
copied,
knows where to go.
and eventually I get copied on an email, and who do I go to, Susan?
Me.
So I think we've made our,
Yes, you have.
made our points. I think you've heard us.
Yes.
I think that Dr. Metzler's heard us. Our public is hearing us. We're taking this seriously. We're interested in this topic. We'd like it if you'd come back.
Absolutely.
Give you a chance to get going, and come back and tell us how it's going, and
Second meeting in December work for you?
perhaps.
Is that soon enough?
And I'm hoping that some of the things you're hearing from our members, we can make some inroads to those. I'm not expecting it's tomorrow, it's all done, but we need to get some starts.
Fair.
So we appreciate you coming, and we appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My Sean said coming up.
We are on budget development update. Jeff?
Sarah?
Nothing you need.
I was like living in a cave up here.
Thank you, Mrs. Sherman. I do wonder if it ever gets old to be welcoming new board members again. Sitting here speaking.
For a while. Saw me last night.
I start out every time.
It's good for a while, please.
I know. So budget, we are in the midst of budget season, which I guess is good in terms of getting the budget developed. All of our departments, schools, budget owners have their budgets well underway. We've met with a number of budget owners.
Hang on one moment.
Are there any extra copies from last week or last meeting? Because Sheila doesn't have anything on the budget, so she's not gonna
Are
have
you
any.
passing anything out tonight, or you're just talking in
I
general?
have a schedule that the budget committee has agreed to.
All right, so it's not
All right, so it's nothing
old
but-
stuff,
Okay.
Yeah.
it's new stuff coming, so.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure she wasn't gonna miss something if we were talking specific numbers and not be able to follow through.
I'm sure Kim will forget it.
I'm not gonna share with you.
Thank you,
let's
Mrs. Savage.
talk about where things are at. What you have now is the most updated department presentation schedule for our budget committee and their presentations. They meet on the opposite nights on Thursday than we do, and well, than the school board does. And you can see the budget development process. It would look, as all of these budgets come together, it looks like we would have our final budget ready for presentation at the end of November, or thereabouts. I am pleased with what is coming in so far from our budget owners, and what their requests are. All seem very reasonable. Also, I don't know how much to speak on this, but we did end up, I guess, closing out our CIP year.
We did. I was
Yeah.
gonna make that in my presentation. We've completed the CIP and getting it rolling to make our presentations to SLT, to the board, to the budget committee.
And that's helpful in terms of what the CIP committee's recommendations are for capital items to be included in the budget. From there, and you can discuss how that process will work in terms of having it at SLT, having it at the board, and that sort of thing, to get a look at what those requests are. So I'm very pleased with where those things are so far. I do have a copy of the school board's budget. If you'd like to take a look, this was presented last week at the budget committee. If you wouldn't mind taking a copy and passing it down. We've never done this before, I'll be frank, in terms of actually presenting a separate budget for the school board. Typically, that's in the roll-up at the end of the year, at the end of the process. So Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of experience, I guess, looking at this aspect of the budget. So the budget they have in front of you is basically the school board and budget committee budgets. There aren't a lot of variable factors here. There's some stipends, miscellaneous expenses, nothing heavy duty. What you see in front of you is a report the budget committee agreed upon, a report format, I'm sorry, the budget committee agreed upon. So you'll see a 2019-20, which is the budget you were budgeting for, requested column, and the budget committee had requested a 2018-19 voted column. In fact, they've requested voted columns for every year in which a budget is presented. So you can see 18-19 voted, 17-18 voted, 16-17 voted, 15-16 voted. So this report, and the format that it's in, has a little bit more detail than what we had been previously used to seeing, which I guess is good. And you can see trends. It's not the best report format, but you can see where the trends are, where we've been spending money, and that sort of thing. In Sue, I think, and I don't know exactly what happened, but you and I chatted briefly on the budget. It's generally very static. Things are what they are. I think there's one or two items in here that may shift. One thing that we noticed, and I think that was brought up to the budget committee,
Can I
Mr. Boyle.
just point of clarification?
Certainly.
We have 2017-18 voted, 2017-18 expended, and then what's the one to the right of that?
That is the voted less expended. Basically, a difference column, a variance column.
Okay.
And you'll see the same thing, 18-19 requested to, or sorry, 19-20 requested to 18-19 voted. You might see that as a difference or a variance column or a delta. I just said, why not include what the actual
Okay, so
formula is.
15-16 doesn't have that, and 16-17 doesn't have that.
Correct.
Okay. Just
As
wanted to
you
see.
can see, we have a real estate problem on this.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, I'm just trying to.
Or we go to small point font.
We've already gone to legal. You can actually see that the report format does not support the line's end, where at the 8.5 by 11, it doesn't actually support it. The data is useful, so it's there. So,
Thank you.
the couple items that we did speak about, if you recall last year, well, I don't know if you recall, some of you will if you've been on the board, we had a number of school board requests that came through for various trips and different things like that. And the thought at the time, in speaking with several of the board members, is, why aren't these budgeted? We know that we have certain things that come up every year. Why aren't these in the budget? And why are the groups having to come to the school board for this? And especially if it's a second, third year of a program. I said, yeah, that's a valid question. So that's the very last line, that 25,000 under school board expenses. And based on the run rate, based on where this board is this year in terms of strategic plan, where we've been able to utilize studies before, that's one that I would have recommended upping to take care of any of those additional requests that we may have. However, there's an understanding that the high school or the middle school respectively will include those activities or co-curricular activities in their respective budgets. So you may have requests from groups in terms of travel, if they want to share a trip, some achievement that they have, but going forward as part of this budget, my intent is to get the schools to budget those accordingly. We have, starting from the first page, school board stipends, that's the 2311, school board clerk 2312, treasurer 2313. You'll see that we have a stipend that's higher, 5,000 that's higher than the 18-19 voted than previous years. There'd been some discussion among the board on the changing duties of both the treasurer and the assistant treasurer, and I would like to have left some room in that column for an opportunity to consider that compensation and make it commensurate with the level of experience and duties that we're expecting of our treasurers.
So, I'm sorry, can I interject here?
Certainly.
So you came up with that difference in the between going from 34 to 5,000, because we didn't have this conversation.
No, so we need to have that discussion now.
Yeah, so we're having the conversation now.
He's suggesting 5. We're open for what we think we want to do with his input about, it's been 34 for a very long time, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And we had discussion that we didn't think that was high enough or appropriate.
You realize this isn't the final budget, right?
Just a
Well,
draft.
it was already presented to the budget committee, wasn't it?
Sure.
Still a draft.
Those budgets aren't final
I
and
know,
they're
but
presented to the budget
I
committee.
think the only reason it came back here was because the budget committee, and this came up in the New Hampshire School Board Association lawyers briefing, is that by RSA, this board should be the ones to present the budget to the budget committee, though the budget committee sets the lines. So we have not been doing, or at least my short tenure on the board, this did not happen last year. So these budgets need to come before this board. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I heard from the lawyers, before they go to the budget committee. So now we have budgets going to the budget committee for Atkinson, Sandown, and Sandown Central that we will not have seen, and that's reverse of the process. So I'm a little confused here as to why a budget has already been to the budget committee before it came to us, especially our budget.
Brian and then Earl.
I really don't think we want to review every budget. I think we would.
We may not want to, but it's our statutory
Oh, no,
obligation.
first of all, I agree with the, well, obviously I was there, I agree with what they said about the statutory requirement, if you will. But I don't know if it makes sense for us to hear a whole budget presentation from each one of these people that I personally actually, I think it's a lot of work what these people are going through that, I know it's a Timberline thing, they've been doing it for years. They all go through their budget, and then I don't care who the board is, and then it gets generalized real quick, you get back down to a different number. And realistically, it gets down to salaries, benefits, buildings. And I understand for years, the building principals, they'll go through, and it's almost like that, why? It never seems to be adopted that way, either by the budget committee or the school board.
Because
So,
they don't adopt just
Well-
Atkinson Academy's budget, just Pollard's.
well, and my fear is, well, I guess what I was, and obviously, I'm just the school board liaison with the budget committee, but it's almost like you want to hear their input, but I don't want to hear their input twice, and it very quickly gets down to salaries, you very quickly can.
Supplies.
And then after it gets adopted, whether it's the adopted operating budget or a default budget that becomes the adopted budget, it becomes the prerogative of this board to, if we want to redistribute things. So I guess, I don't know, this might be as good a time as any, that I don't know if, I understand what you're saying, Kim, but I don't know if we want to hear presentations.
I don't necessarily want to hear presentations, but this board should be presenting a budget to the budget committee, and
This
I
one? Our own?
No,
Or-
the budget.
The entire one, the one that was presented at your meeting, because I will admit,
Wasn't
I was
presented.
watching
Well-
that meeting, and when you said that it was already approved,
No, I don't think I said it was approved. If I did, that was a misstatement. Certainly, we discussed it.
yeah, I was like, well, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, there's not a lot, and we're still wrapping up the current year budget. There's not, this is an area that we had never, this report did not exist. We had never separated out this expense. You were on the budget committee last year, Lee. We never had a school board expense line. There was a request to look at it. We've looked at it. It's a new process, right? So I don't even know that it had ever been looked at discreetly on its own before. No. It's a new process. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what that process is, how we'd like to see it.
Why don't we as a board consider it go on to a higher level
Well,
in terms of the higher budget code level that like you see, which is going to be required anyway, on the default budget. The default budget, I believe, is even requires the next level of detail than the previous year. And that's also going to be presented at a public hearing. So we have to do all that anyway.
so we need to be looking at presenting at a high level to the budget committee, a budget of this form. And that was what the attorney said.
Yeah.
The old one.
Okay, so I don't necessarily need to have presentations by buildings, but I think what we need to do is say, let's look at this budget, let's see where we want to stand at an overall, and then at least set some of these major lines so we know you're not giving them any parameters to work with. And we've also done major distributions here of funds in these lines for this upcoming year. And I think we need to do some work here. And one of the pieces that needs to happen is we're down 14 positions. Those positions need to be eliminated so that they are not going into the proposed budget, because if not, they will go into the default budget.
Well, wait, so I guess, well, but if I may, my suggestion is we get, in terms of detail, with the school board budget, which is, obviously, that's what was just handed out.
Well, yeah.
And then I think, the future meeting here, I think we should be looking at a higher level budget.
But not presentations by each
Right,
of the
right.
elementary
No, no, no,
schools.
no.
Right.
However, the budget committee hears those individual schools, correct? Yeah, presentations.
Yep, yep.
Brian is there. He's going to hear those. So when we hear it at a higher level, he's going to be able to say, yeah, you know, Danville requested da-da-da-da in their presentation. I want you to be considering that, you know, if the number for all schools looks a little higher, understand what each of the schools has. But he's our guy. He should be coming back and forth for us and saying, and helping us understand when we see the bigger picture. Does that make any sense to you?
It does, but we never look at the budget.
So we will.
No,
We
no.
will.
We have to.
Well.
We will.
Okay, well, to date, I've never seen it in that.
Yeah, Earl's been
Yeah,
trying.
just, now, there's no debate on who's supposed to do this, whose authority it is, right? It's the school board's authority, right? So what has happened in the past, and this is where everybody thinks something was wrong. The school board, this is back to Mr. Stokinger, gave their authority to Mr. Stokinger to do it, right? So boards change, and so now, this is a good discussion to have, because you can decide right where your lane is. Like, how much, because it could be all the way down to what you're talking about, duplication of same presentations to the school board that goes to the, which you're not asking for, or a higher level, but at the end of the day, the proposed budget is supposed to be presented by the school board.
Correct.
They just never did. They just gave, you can direct that authority somewhere else, or not. So if the school, you know, or the work can be done at school board meetings. So, and that's what and that, I think that's where everybody gets confused, because that's what I inherited in 2012 when I came in. That authority was given to the business administrator to do it. And the school board was not involved in the budget, in the proposed budget at all, right? Or the default budget, for that matter, right?
No, they
And that has
haven't.
changed a little bit, and now we are where we are. So defining it, so there's no misunderstandings or no confusion, would be very helpful for everyone involved. And I think if we're talking higher level, or whatever level you want, if you want it here before it goes to the budget committee, say it, and then that's what has to happen.
Well, that'll
Right.
change this presentation, because
Right.
we'd have to see them all. Or hear it.
Well, no,
No, this is different. This is
I'm
much
not
more
interested in seeing all these presentations. I do not think that is our job, but.
So those parameters, though, I think last year even, I'm sorry to interrupt, but those parameters around what are we doing with each department? Like I said, hey, there's no new staff, level fund them, and that's what we're trying to get to as I meet with these people individually. Look at what you spent last year, you know, next year, that's what we're currently working on, because I meet with them, and Jeff, about a half an hour apiece, or 45 minutes, whatever, and we go through line by line by line, you know, and try to get to a bottom line. Because last year, I think, at least in our discussion, you were like, wow, each one of these department budgets are up. This one's up 30, this one's up 50, you know, you start adding them all up. So we're trying to stay there. That was really the parameters we gave them, right? Unless you change those parameters and say, hey, listen, I want you to do X minus, X plus. You know, that's what they're currently working on in these departments, right? But I thought that was kind of where you were, like level fund them, right?
It's not just level fund there's a
What?
difference
Yeah.
between level funding the departments and level funding the budget.
I know, but that's
Well, but
That's a
we
part of it,
need to
yeah.
have this conversation.
Yeah, well,
We as the board need to have this conversation. I think it's important, because it came out at the budget committee, by at least one budget committee member, please don't come in at a $73 million budget, because it's not going to happen, at least for one budget committee member. This board, I think, to be fair to you and the rest of the administration, needs to figure out kind of where we stand. Are we level funding the budget? Are we looking to, and I know it's hard to just throw that number out at this point. We could do it by going into the major lines, which are your salary lines, because those are the ones that can adjust probably more than some of these other lines. I mean, there are certain supplies, there are certain things that you just have to have. The bus contract can't change much, the special ed can't change much. So we need to start grappling with this sooner in order to be fair to everybody involved.
That pushes, these people have to get their stuff done sooner, so we can grapple sooner. It all trickles down.
I don't think we really need, I think we need to come up, I'm for level funding the budget, because remember, we're looking at a teacher contract going out, which will, if it passes, increase the budget by whatever that number is that is negotiated.
So short of a motion and a second and a directive, I assume that's what we were doing, and that's what I was working on, was level funding the budget.
Well,
But I know, but there wasn't a motion and a second and that was just.
I'm throwing, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's.
No, I would agree
Let's
with
have a
you.
discussion before we start putting motions out.
Right.
I'm
You
not
could always-
making a motion, I'm just saying this is my opinion.
We should
I wanna
have
hear
these
what everybody else
discussions, and we
has.
should have had them, probably earlier, because what it does is it gives both the administration, guidelines of where we're expecting this, because if we're all internally figuring that it's gonna be right around the same number last year, and these guys are putting together budgets that are above that or below that, and they're gonna come back in here, it's gonna be all wasted work at that point.
My feeling was, the reason we were looking at level funded without a directive was I felt like, well, it's something you could add to if you chose to or not. We'd be in a place where I thought, it was better than going way up and trying to work our way back, that this didn't go well last
No,
year.
that probably is not gonna work anymore.
No, so that was the feeling I got, but I mean, it wasn't an official directive, but it was the feeling I got with conversations with several of you individually and then collectively as a group, just taking from that was just a starting point.
All right, let's keep this discussion going. Mrs. Silver.
Okay, so a lot of new people sitting around the table here, including myself, first time going through this budget process. I feel like in years past, I've heard the budget committee, some comments come out of budget committee, looking for a recommendation. What is the school board's recommendation? How are they going to do the work without the school board's recommendations? I'm not seeing on here anywhere that, so at what point does the school board provide that recommendation to the budget committee so that they can do their work?
CIP in here.
So there are two people at this table who put a big smile on my face tonight, and it's yourself and Dr. Farah. Yes.
It's hard to believe.
Since
Wow,
I started,
can I put a big smile on my face?
you did, because you've just brought up a topic. Since the day I started in this job, I receive more general guidance, if it's level, that I have been clamoring for something over the past year and a half. So if that's the direction, thank you.
I do have
Still in
concerns.
discussion here.
I only get so happy, but
For me, this is an easy one. This is an easy year. We have a teacher contract. I won't speak for the entire board, but we want to support our teachers, or I want to support our teachers. And I think the best way to get that support for the teachers is to make sure the rest of the budget is low enough so that warrant article will pass in the polls. For me, it feels like an easy year to
Things
say.
need to be reasonable.
Yes.
And
Level
I
budget,
think.
or better.
I think if we can do that and we put something out written to the voters, I'd be for sending out a flyer or whatever, to let them know, this is what we've done. We've tried to go level here for another year, because we want to support, because that teacher contract was this close last time, and I don't want to see that not pass.
I agree.
And I think the only way that we're going to have support from the voters is if we're conscientious on this budget.
Lee, comment.
Just to Jen's point about, when does that directive get sent to the budget committee? So in the past 3 years, when I was on the budget committee, it came too late in the process, and I think you'll agree, right? When we did, if not at all.
if not at all.
Yeah, it was when we'd have the joint school board budget committee meeting.
November 27th.
And we'd sit around a table, and sometimes school board was prepared for that meeting, sometimes they weren't, just because of the way information flowed. Really, at that point, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late. I mean, department budgets have already been developed. So I think it's something we're having the discussion now, and let's keep this in mind for next year. Let's put it as an agenda item more in the beginning of the year.
Well, we tried that. I tried that last year.
Well, let's
And I
deal
was
with
corrected by
reality.
the budget committee.
Yeah.
Let me know who's responsible for what. And I said, okay.
Well, now we
Now
have
we have,
clarification.
Here we go.
Attorneys, that we are responsible.
So, of course we are.
Yeah, so can we agree tonight what message we want to give to the people who are doing the work in the sand pits? Where we want to go. I heard level here, I heard level here. I'm saying it needs to be reasonable because I want a teacher contract passed. Of course I do. So.
Well, what does reasonable mean?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that question.
But the
Level
superintendent's
isn't-
already saying, which is great. I think that's
Reasonable
what I heard.
means sometimes you can't, depending on benefits and health things.
Can't control it.
It isn't necessarily
But level is-
exactly the same number as last year.
But level funded, to me, means that, we agree on this, it's the bottom line number, we gotta figure out how to make it level.
Yeah.
Right, so how those numbers get changed around, so that bottom line number is around the same number, that's really what we've been working on.
Great.
Which is another point I need to bring up here. Our bottom line number on this is not the voted number. On the
On
budget
which-
you handed
on
out
which?
last time,
The
it was
form that-
72-1, and that's not the voted
Sheila
number.
doesn't have that.
Oh, you mean, you're talking about the overall, not the school board budget. You're talking
The
about.
overall budget.
The overall budget,
the
Jeff. That's
overall
why you're
budget
looking.
On this budget form is not what was the voted budget. This is $300,000 higher.
Which one is that?
One from
That's-
last week.
That's
The overall
one from
budget.
Is
last
that the
week.
reserve that gets added to or something, to
No,
the 71.8?
no,
What was
The
it?
overall budget should be 718.
I thought you commented
You
about that.
you
that you knew
commented
that
why
the
it was
line
off
Add
by
the capital
1,200 here.
reserve to the budget.
Yes, it should be the last line.
Anywho,
Or second to last line. That's how DRA treats it.
Can we hold that
Yeah.
thought, Kim?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm fine about your estimate. Let's let him come back and talk to us about, let's do this school board budget, because I believe there are some people here who want to make some changes, and we can revisit that budget at the budget committee. Wait a minute, we've got some changes. The board's talked about it in its entirety now, and we're doing this. Or we're fine with this number, or whatever. And Brian can deliver that message, Jeff can deliver the message, both of them can, because Brian's our rep, right? So,
But are we all in agreement of where
Well,
we
let-
want this thing?
well, that's what we're talking about right now.
No, not this particular one, but the overall.
I'd like to do this, and then come back and
Okay.
talk about the overall, okay?
I'm
I-
just clarifying.
So we were at the stipend of the school board clerk.
We were
I
at,
think
we
it
were
needs
there.
to go up.
We were at the stipend of the treasurer, yes?
Treasurer, clerk.
Yes.
Yeah, treasurer.
He's proposing 5. They have done a lot of work this year. We're proposing that they do a lot more work in the next year or so. Are you fine with 5? You want to amend that?
I'm fine with 5.
I think we should move, I think we should go from 34 to 5.
5? Am I hearing anything else? That's our best.
I think we should actually probably look at get some more information of like what other school districts, their treasurers are paid, and maybe even contact LGC to figure out what they would pay for that.
John,
Because
seeing how it took us months to get one, I don't care if the other school people say it's 30,000. We advertise for this.
Yeah, I did
There's
look
not
last
100
year.
people out there.
It's all over the.
It's all over the
It's all
place,
over
right?
the map.
Yeah.
I did look last year. I researched this last year when we didn't have a treasurer.
How big are the range? Is it,
Some of them are really, really small. and
Some
then
of them are like $100.
Yeah.
are any of them as much as, that's not in the 20 or 30,000?
Oh, no.
No.
But they can be several
They can be-
$1,000s down
Put in
to
for it.
almost nothing. I mean.
And then that
I
may be
saw one that was
commensurate
10.
with the level not experience, but
Work that they have to do too.
level of work or the
How big
expectations.
the district
Yeah.
is.
And I think the expectations have changed, and I think it's fair that we have a different.
it's also the working relationships that they have with your office, because, I mean, by RSA, they would be responsible for deposits, all the check balancing, all that other stuff. If a lot of that is done by your office and you have, because they can legally designate somebody in your office to do the deposit, so that's something off of their table, then yes, I can see where that stipend would just be reduced a lot.
I think in our case, it definitely is skill set, and I think that the assistant treasurer position is a real tough one. because you want to have someone who is on standby, ready to go, with a particular skill set.
Correct.
And that's, we want to entice our treasurer and assistant treasurer to be actively engaged and be able to have those
And not
capabilities.
leave us.
And be ready to jump in.
Approximately how many hours a week would you expect that the treasurer's putting in?
A week?
Saying we're up to date, or a month. I say a month, we don't need to, because it varies, I'm sure, based on your,
I mean, check signing, travel, I mean, just to get here, it might be an hour or so, even just to sign checks, review vouchers, get them into their reporting mechanism, their tracking mechanism.
Mhm.
I don't know how much time it would be on the other end. I wouldn't speculate, but I think that we're operating at a much higher level and a lot more time is being put into it. I'd feel comfortable asking the treasurer, hey, you know, what do you put in? Because a lot of it's done outside of the office.
I don't know, I just have no concept of the amount of time, but it seems like a big job. I know.
I'm fine with the recommendation at 5. Okay, moving down, then we've got the, some expenses for the treasurer. What expenses would the treasurer have? What kind of things would they, getting their stamps and,
If you have to order checks or any other peripheral supplies that come in, which we're trying to move away from, which would be nice next year. TRSB has been up and down.
yeah, the spend has been all over the place too. All right, moving on, then we've got the, where are we?
Annual meeting.
Annual meeting.
If you'll notice 4,000 there, on the vote for 2,000, then if we look at the 17, 18 expended, 37, 34, 16, 17, 29, 99, 15, 16, 18, 89. I've seen a trend go up in that area.
And where's the 15? Oh, sorry, 15, 16.
Way out.
Yeah.
You see it's trending up in a lot of ways, and it seems prudent to be on the cautious end, recommending 4,000.
What are those services, Jeff?
Yeah.
Well, typically that involves the setup for the room, notice that needs to go out, legal notice, things like that. We have a separate line for legal notices that need to go out, but it's quite an involved setup. We have ballot printing, I believe, that comes out of that as well.
That's the next one down.
A separate line
That's
on
the
that.
next one down.
Is it the,
A lot of it has to do with the setup, if we have to get chairs and tables and AV to transmit out to the community.
Speakers and.
this will pay election
And
officers?
are the election officials paid out of that?
They are.
Too?
Yeah.
So each community has election officials there.
And I think where we've been able to use the PAC for public hearing, right, that's been able to reduce some of those costs, but for our deliberative at the gym, a bigger setup, you're staging the whole place for the 4 towns.
So the staging, the chairs, the drapes, the drapes in front of the tables, and the payouts to the check register people.
The, right,
And the ballot printing is next, is that 6,500?
6,500, yeah, and you'll see the trend on that. It goes up and down. I think to some degree we're, I don't want to say at the mercy of the towns, but to some degree, we have to follow what the towns are printing in terms of numbers. I think we were short 1 year. I think that our ballots were short to the town. It wasn't good.
Is there an added fee when our ballot is, 2 pages versus just one page, two-sided, so you gotta have so you feel 6,500 is adequate there?
This collation costs, make sure that yours gets collated and sent over to the towns.
More wordy warrant articles would cost more.
Okay, back, now where are we here?
Annual, if you go to district meeting, you'll see the whole 2314.
That's the whole figure.
Yeah. And I'm just going to hit pause right here. So for everyone that's new, and I think, Kristen, you probably know, I don't know if you guys use it so much. If you just look at the top of the page, you see the numbers 100, 2314, 340, 01, 33, 4. So the big ones here to keep in mind that 100 is our 100 general fund. 2314 is the function. 340, in that case, is the object code. You'll see that changes on the next line down to 550. You'll see the next line down is 610 for supplies. So this report is summing up at that functional level at that 2314 district meeting. The actual function object code would be the fund, function, object, then we get into department location, et cetera, et cetera. But for purposes here, you'll see the 2314 and all of those 2314 accounts by object code are summarized there. The next function is 2317, which is audit, and that is 47,000. That's been pretty level, I believe. Going back, you'll see the actuals, 33, 31, 25. Leave a little bit of room there. Don't know what that audit's going to entail. I'm looking at paying the bill for next year on that. I'd recommend 47. Legal fees, 140. We have had, if you look at the trend, and I know that seems like a very big number. If you look at the trend, 15, 16 expended, 16, 17 expended. Then we get into 17, 18 expended. These are really all over the place. The request last year was for 145, I believe. 90 is what was voted through default. And I think that if we look at what goes into that account, we have our general legal support. We have a lot of special ed legal support that goes into that. We also have legal support in years that are contract years for either of our collective bargaining units, and this year is one, and next year will be another. So there is some added expense there. I recommend 140,000. If you have any changes, let me know if you'd like to discuss.
If you could stop right there.
Yes.
This came up last week in the budget committee meeting that I asked that I would like to see how that gets broken down. You just mentioned 4 or 5 things of legal. So obviously there is so much money for special ed, and there's got to be some kind of a breakdown how this legal thing gets broken down. So I think that would, if we could see,
Like by major category type thing?
right, that way
Could we
it'd make a lot more sense.
We don't track it. I don't track it like that. However, I can see what I can do to aggregate that data. I don't record it on our books at that level to say, well, this is, special ed support, this is for contract and all of that. But I certainly can look at what we've spent.
Yeah, but I would think, like, for example, we had a lawyer here all day today about the union negotiations. Is that the same law firm that does special ed?
Yes. Well, it could be.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Could be. It's
They
not.
have a deep bench.
Oh, I-
We used to go to different
Right.
firms, but that firm has.
But I would think, so same thing even in Drummond Wilson, they should know what that is.
What the breakdown is?
Yeah, union negotiations, special ed, of course internally they would have to know that. You don't think so?
Look at our past billing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I have to see. I don't know if
Well, Sarah's doing the bills, and I've done the bills for 5 years, and it does break it down. And you'll see, phone conference, personnel,
Yeah.
Letter.
conference, special ed.
Yeah.
way to track that would be by a project number. And so, for example, contract support is, project 1,000.
Yeah.
So then you can look at all the project 1,000 costs for, contract support, contract negotiation support. They don't provide the part details to what the nature of the matter is, but it's not broken down in the bill.
Oh,
I can
well, the rest-
figure out a way to.
I was gonna say, I don't know
an
the rest of the
allocation
board
of it.
feels, but especially when you see, I recognize, as you pointed out, there's a history there that goes up and down, so in a year that you're asking for it to be 50,000 higher, I think it makes sense for us to have some kind of rationale here.
Sure.
Yeah, I would think that 50,000 higher for the union contract probably is a little high. If you think, we've got a union contract, so that's gonna make up the different.
But that's next year.
They tripled the number of
Next
meetings
year.
with them.
Yes, that's true, we did. Well, that
Oh, no,
looks
but-
like they took away a few.
What, for the union?
Taken away a few.
We
Yeah.
took away a bunch of
Negotiating
them.
meetings.
We're
What?
not meeting every week. No, we took away a bunch of
Yeah,
union
we
meetings.
took some away
Okay, yeah.
today.
But the,
But this
So-
is next year's budget.
Right, I know, I'm comparing
Well,
it
it's
to.
TSSU is next year or something.
Right, and then the following year, this year, next year's budget
next
is
year's
gonna
TSSU.
include another negotiation. I'm saying, I don't really think it's gonna, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna cost $50,000 to negotiate that contract.
So, I agree with Brian. I think we need to see the historical data around what we're paying out for legal services and for what, and draw that relationship to negotiations. You know, when you look at the delta from the voted to the requested for 2018-19 to 19-20, it's $57,000. So largely driven by that legal line item. I think it's hypocritical of us to ask for a budget to be developed that's level funded, and we're looking for a $57,000 increase.
True.
On a $90,000 item.
No, that was the request at this time last year. That was the number that went in. So, and other considerations, I did hear someone sitting here earlier with a potential withdrawal petition, maybe legal support related to that. It's a very,
They'd be legal support.
yeah.
Yeah, and it could be something where we feel we need that, and yeah, we still want a level fund, we're just gonna have to find that $50,000 somewhere else. To help on that legal line, so.
That would be the SAU legal line.
No.
Good point.
No. No.
That's not
Not
accurate.
if it's our withdrawal.
Timberlane's.
Timberlane's.
I think it'd be on both, probably be on both
Timberlane
sides.
study, it'd be a Timberlane expense.
Probably be on both.
Well.
Oh, yeah, the SAU would actually have their own attorney, you know.
I think the
Wouldn't be
good thing
same-
about
It wouldn't be
that-
the same attorney.
You're gonna need money over here for that, too.
I think the good thing about that is that that's a district-wide effort if it were to be, as opposed to a town seeking withdrawal. So it's not one town causing an expense on the district. It would be a district-wide initiative. If there's any upside, at least it would be, cost would be placed correctly.
We agreed we'd like some more information about that
Sure.
particular
Yes.
line, so let's move on.
Please.
So Jeff, please, for next time. So then we go down to the Budget Committee Clerk stipend.
It's a new one.
Is that a new one?
We have a new clerk.
We do have a new clerk, yes. Yes, we do. Very good. We do have a new clerk, and they've increased the number of meetings that they are having, and I've increased the stipend accordingly to reflect what likely will be, and they may end up scheduling more meetings
Great.
outside of budget season. We have the school district committee expense, 2,000. So that's something that has not often been used or utilized.
I didn't
And-
even know we had school district committee.
Well, we do, and this year particularly with strategic planning and in the subcommittees that are gonna be coming out, I said, this would probably be a year that we'll have a request for some service. Something came up earlier, and I actually thought to myself, that probably would be something that would come up and be an expense here. Advertising legal notices, 8,000, and I don't wanna put Kathy on the spot, Mrs. Belcher on the spot. We have a trend here where we have not been necessarily needing to spend quite as much in legal and advertising, 8,000. That might be an area for opportunity.
Yeah, why
But
would that be so high compared to, just looking back at what, that one, it looks like what we've expended is actually going down, but we're requesting and it's going up.
Oh,
But I think,
Oh, it's been
Requesting level.
eight.
but
Oh, do I have this
isn't
in
that
the
where
wrong-
is that where we'd
No, expended.
charge, if, like Kim's suggestion, if the school board was gonna send out a flyer to
That come out of that?
educate the vote? Where would that come out of?
You could, you could, and I think that we're, I don't want to say we're moving away from what we would have traditionally considered, legal notice. So you may put something in the paper, but, and.
No, I'm not talking legal, I'm talking about like
A flyer that we wanted to send to every school district member mailbox, talking about our budget versus the,
Yeah.
I think
why
that's
we'd
fine.
like you to vote for our budget
There you
and
go.
support our teachers.
And it would say when to show up with the ballot, like
Right,
where to
would
find
have that,
information.
here's when the
Beautiful,
public hearing
perfect.
is, here's when the,
Yep. Yeah.
would it come out of that? That's what that.
Yep, very well
Come
could.
out of there, okay. So that's level, that hasn't changed.
I would say, just remember that flyer that we would be sending out, it would have to be just factual based. You can't have it be any kind of an
I
electionary.
mean, we can't electioneer?
No.
Oh. You think I don't know that?
Well, from their comment about saying support the budget,
But
Goose
the
contract.
information would support,
I'm going on just with the verbiage you just said,
well,
which was
then
to
I'll
saying to
I'll
support.
refrain. We would give the facts about the budget and the facts about the warrant article and the facts about the meetings. Better?
That's better.
And you can support a collective bargaining agreement.
I believe you can.
That's not electioneering.
Wait,
Not a
what?
budget.
You collectively bargain, you can support what you collectively bargain. That's not electioneering.
Okay,
Well, we would
stop,
put a
stop,
recommendation.
stop. We're moving on. School board conference expenses.
School board conference expenses, 4,000, level with last year. I don't want to say happy, I'm very happy, but I am. I'm happy to hear that you've had conferences, you've had speakers in, you're getting some significant value out of that already. I don't know, I think that I think the budget committee had, I think, the least expensive conference ever. I think it was $50 for whoever wanted to go. In Danville, I think, or Sandown?
It was in Sandown.
It was in Sandown.
Yeah.
I don't expect you guys to do that. I said, how much is it going to be? How many are going?
That line would also allow you, having been to several, there's a National School Board Association conference. It's excellent. So if you sent a member, at least you would have access
little
to
money, just help
a
them
line. Jason Cipriano has gone, Peter Beal has gone. It's a really good conference.
You know what year he
Holding
went?
out for the
16,
Caribbean one.
17, he went, right?
A couple of years ago, yeah. Jason went Jason actually.
Well, no, you
presented-
can see it right here.
Oh, yeah. And Jason presented at it last year on Steam. So it's in, I believe it's in April, I think, and it's in Philadelphia this year. So it's
When's it going to win the Caribbean?
yeah, Philadelphia is not the Caribbean.
Yeah. Philadelphia on March
Brotherly love is just
27th.
about as much as you get. Yeah.
Anyway,
So
so
I-
we're set with that.
I'm going to hit pause again. I don't want to go back, but we had the discussion tonight, if you don't mind, in the subcommittee meeting. I'm not saying that it's anything like that. If we ever wanted to have NHSBA take a look at, any compliance issues on our policies, we talked about that 2,000 for the school board district committee expenses.
Could
So we
come
said,
out
gee,
there.
what would we use that for? And that's when it was. When we were sitting there tonight and having that discussion, I'm not saying it's going to happen or not. That's a great use for that
Could
line.
use that, yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
we have the dues line for the NHSBA, speaking of which. And school board dues, school board expenses, 25,000. Based on spend, I would be inclined to increase that. We had the discussion involving really shifting a lot of the expense requests that we get, right, that you all have been getting, I think, for the past 2 years, back to the schools.
Can I ask, is this, the specialty groups, the clubs, the asking for extra money from the school board to stay over somewhere or compete in something? Is that this line where it comes out of?
So I don't know that it's supposed to be that line, but I think it has been that line in the past. And last year's spend was significantly over where the board would have wanted to be in a
seeing
short.
that.
However, based on the fact that we do have strategic planning going on, we did do a number of initiatives last year.
Money came out of that.
I'm thinking that school board expense line will be used if anything comes up and if it's needed for an ad hoc study here or there for those purposes. So if we did not make a concerted, and I won't say conservative, the board hasn't voted on it, but if we haven't really given if it's not the board's prerogative to have the school's budget for those co-curricular type trips and activities, I would say if we're going to continue as we've been doing in the past, that 25 won't be enough. But what I've heard is, let's get those funds back into the schools where they belong, have the high school budget for it.
So to that point, to your frustration, it happens a couple of years in a row. So last year, they budgeted for it, but we're on the default budget.
So they don't have the money
So
this
they
year
don't,
either.
so we're in the same situation we were as far as groups coming. But they're budgeting for them again this year.
In this year's budget,
In
and
this
therefore
year's.
this budget ties to their budget, and
So you feel that figure is too low?
it would be if you were gonna continue, if we thought we'd still need money for trips
Well-
and things like that, but you've made a fairly strong point.
I know
that-
I've asked this before, and so I'd like to ask it again. How can we support these groups to do some fundraising on their own? Because we know the band does fundraising, athletics does fundraising. How do we support these, I guess for lack of a better word, academic groups to do some fundraising so that they can access that money? I mean, academic boosters? I don't know.
Well, there's been some discussion about that, and I think you've supplemented, so they do some, they just don't have enough.
But it's
Right.
not nearly to the level that I think some of these other
No.
groups are
Yeah,
doing.
no,
So
it's-
how
they're
can we
smaller
support
It's
that?
smaller groups of 8, 10, 12, 16, you know, it's not like the
20.
TMA. you
Yeah,
know,
no, I understand, but I just,
But even at the TMA level, I'll be honest with you, they go on trips every other year. My daughter didn't go on the Disney trip because I just couldn't afford it. I didn't come to the school board and ask them, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I have to be honest, I'm having issues with it. And I understand there's some kids that just don't have it and they really want to go. Then maybe there's a scholarship or something to do to help out. But I've been on a lot of boosters. A lot of, Timberland Music Association, boosters for sports, and we've never come to the school board looking. So
Yeah, so if the directive is, and I'm not suggesting it, this is not the place to come to ask for additional, like, that I should be directing back to the principals, your groups need to.
I'm
tricky.
I would
struggling
like to
because,
support them in that, though, not
Right.
just to say, we're
Well, no,
we're
of course,
not.
no, I'm not, I don't want it to be a cold
Right.
message, it's not a
Right.
cold message, it's just, once you do it, it's an option for, like, I watched, wait a minute, you gave it to
Right, and
this
that's what
group,
happened.
I'm going to the school board for the rest of it, hey, we got half of it, let's go.
And then we didn't have money, and instead of saying no, it's like first come, first serve, and then at the end of the year,
Right.
you don't want to say no to that last group because you've said yes to everybody else. But, so now we're saying, please
please
find
find
the
the
money.
other money, right,
Well, that's why
right.
that one line is
Yeah.
an over in essence, because we said
said,
we knew we
"Please find
still
the
had money, but you took it out of that line, so that's why it's showing an overage, because we did over that line, because we had consultants and everything else last year
Right, and that
Which
came
is-
out of that
came
one.
out of there.
I really struggle with this because it is they're academic clubs, and I really struggle with it. But I can't figure out, how do you do this for everybody? How do you, when that line runs out, how do you keep
And so,
going?
I'm with you too, and philosophically, I have a hard time with kids standing out in front of a store with a can in their hand. I have a really hard time with that, I'm not a fan, I am not a fan.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but
I know,
my
it's- yeah.
kids have done it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm having,
And
I have a struggle with this.
defending both those particular groups we're speaking to, they have. I mean, they've done quite a bit.
Correct.
And yet, it wasn't enough. And so,
Correct.
we supported them, they had 10 kids going, and we had enough money. The next year, they got 20 kids going, and so, how do you give them equal amount of money? Or, it was a struggle for us to make
It
that
should be
decision.
an
'cause we-
ongoing, year-long.
Well, in some, I'll tell you that in Plaster, we'll talk about Plaster, Kristen Savage is on the Recreation Commission. In the Recreation Commission's budget, we have it calls youth sport donations. So if lacrosse, which Recreation does not have a program,
Right.
the lacrosse program can ask us for some money. And we have it kind of delineated, 500 to them and 500.
I don't believe we have that in Sandown, do we? We
And
don't
it's
have
worked
that in
out pretty
Sandown.
well. Well, it's worked out pretty well. It's not a lot of money, and some years they ask for it, some years they haven't asked for it because they've had enough money.
Because they don't want to do the paperwork. Most of them, but that's
Okay,
a
well,
different
that may be a
subject, but
different
that's-
story.
Well, all I'm saying is that I
We have-
am struggling.
But so it is a struggle.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to your point, is there a way that we could put a cap, like $1,000 or $500 or, $1,200
Right.
for a group, so that it's,
Any group that comes through.
And
That's
and
the
that's
max
how we,
that they-
that's what my point was, we did that in
Yeah.
Plastow,
Yeah.
it's an upper limit of X amount.
X amount.
But boy, it's hard when a big group comes in and they say 500 isn't even gonna come close to what we need, well, we're sorry.
That's all we can, that's all we can afford,
Well,
that's
what
all we can do.
Yeah, I know.
Every group has a different need,
That's
because they're
correct.
doing a different type of
That's
event that
right.
has a very different set of expenses associated with it.
I've watched this evolve just from, supporting a DI team that goes to a national to everybody. It
Right.
has really evolved quite a bit over the last few years,
Because the old adage is if you don't ask, you know what the answer is.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's why.
So
we
how do
come.
we,
So
how
is
do
there a
we
group?
do this? Do
There's
we
not
take
an
this and?
academic boosters club,
Well,
there is not.
I'm hearing the consensus pretty clearly is I need to,
I don't
I need to get that message back to the sites to,
Yeah, but I don't think it's a message of we don't want to support.
No, it's just,
That's
it's
not
just a
what's-
matter of encouraging them to self-fund. really. And it's not a message that we're not, it's just, because we're budgeting for it. We budgeted for it last year, we just didn't have it because of the way the budget worked out, so.
But we went over quite a bit, right?
Yeah, because we have consultants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Kristen and then Jen, and then Brian.
Isn't this kind of how our meeting started? With accepting the public donation and the funds and to move forward? And can't we encourage that type of, initiative as opposed to standing out in front of the stores with a can? Because I 100% agree with you. But to encourage these more academic groups and whatnot to look into what's out there. I mean, there's money out there. We've seen it with the donations for classrooms or for this or that. You don't want to go the GoFundMe routes. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. But looking at some of those other things, and then if they're going to come to the board, if we set a dollar amount or parameter, but they have to show us that they've done something. I mean, that they've actually taken an initiative too, not just come in here and say, we want X, but what have you done to offset some of these costs and to show us? But to encourage them, I think it's an academic thing too. It's a business proposal. It's go to these places that do have the grants, that do have these things out there to see what's out there. And maybe it's not just one group. Maybe, like you said, you might have a group that has 10 kids, but you have a group that has 40. But if they can come together, with a similar cause and maybe apply for a larger grant together and encourage them all to work together on doing something. I just think it's a possibility to see what all these groups can come together and as a joint meeting to say, how can we all fundraise or do something, as opposed to each little group doing something, which becomes very annoying too.
Yeah.
So
It's been
we only have
two
so many
groups, just to be clear, again, it's been two groups that have consistently come to us, not lots, but two. We could philosophically discuss this over and over, for hours and hours. They have been told it's high school, so they have been told, put those kinds of things in your activities budgeting. So as long as it goes through the budget, we'll be okay. I don't want to increase that number higher than 25,000 personally.
I don't either.
I'd personally like to see this budget level funded, and I think you could do it. We haven't discussed take the legal line out of it. The budget's up by 7,200, but there are places you could shift around to compensate for those increases in the stipends. I think we could level fund this budget. Yes, because there are a couple places where we could move money into different areas. I think you could, if we're not going to increase legal by 50,000, I think you could level fund this budget.
Sounds like a challenge.
There are enough little shifts to do it.
Other things you want to say about this budget, and then I'll entertain some motions if you wish to make them.
We could, because weren't we looking to
We're
find
still
out?
waiting for that major category stuff about legal
Right,
fees.
yeah.
What else did we want? I think we were set on the other things, right? We didn't need any specific information about those. So would you prefer to put this particular one on the agenda yet again, and it'll make Brian have to say, we're coming back, you're gonna see us again?
I'd prefer that.
Yeah. Make Brian have to say.
Yes.
He seems fine about that. All right, so do we need a motion to authorize the superintendent to authorize Jeff, or are we consensusing this? All right, let him give us some information about some major categories in that legal line, so we can get it down a smidgy bit lower than what it is right now.
Next agenda.
And we'll put it on Mrs. Belch's ever-continuing list of agenda items. So just to tell Kristen and Sheila what Kathy does to keep me so that my brain doesn't burn completely. She keeps a list of, as things come up, action items to keep on the list, and the list gets longer, but keep working on it. Kristen?
Just to clarify where Kim was going in, I know you accepted the challenge, but we're gonna look, when we see this again, we'll look at it to see more of a level funded.
Or lower?
I mean, not
Definitely
taking the
lower?
legal line into consideration, because we're obviously gonna reconsider, but everything else should be little shifts here and there, because I have a hard time
telling everybody else you have to level fund yours and we're going up this much. I have a real hard time
Well,
with
the
that.
big shift is the
I see the little shifts that can be done easily in here.
Let's make it a good
To keep
narrative.
it there,
We
so.
have costs that went up, and we found a way to cover it.
Yeah.
That's a good narrative to put out there.
We gotta walk the walk, too.
For my bonus.
All right, that'd be Brian's. All right, so
Can
we're
I just
putting
ask
this to
one
bed
thing,
for
since we
tonight?
have the
No,
business
why not?
administrator
Okay,
here?
sure.
Is that,
Sure.
I'd like to ask just a topic of the audit, since it's October. It's gonna be starting on up
Audit,
soon.
yes.
Where do we stand? We all nice and set and getting ready to rock and
As
roll?
far as I
them?
know, we're just trying to finalize some dates, but we're still looking late
Haven't got a date set yet.
late this month. Yeah.
Okay.
It's only the 4th, but we'll keep
I know.
working. It is October. So I'm hoping we hear from him and we get that started.
So I will ask the question. You've done a great job going through that budget. I have a budget presentation schedule in front of me. Am I okay to proceed according to that schedule?
Your
I've
schedule,
received some
not
guidance
ours.
from the board.
Well,
Except CIP, they haven't put CIP in. I spoke to the chairman and said, I would like you to pencil us in. So I'm gonna let Brian get that penciled in when we're ready to present, which isn't until we present it here. Kim, I'm sorry.
That was my question.
What you just said a few minutes ago was that we're gonna do the school board budget, and we're gonna go back to the conversation of where this board wants to see the budget. So I think that's the next conversation, but then I have a few budget questions.
That's why I was bringing that up. So
Should I ask my questions first?
Go ahead.
This is an audit schedule, what's this? Okay, so this voted budget here includes 250,000, so our voted budget is around 71,870.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay. You know, when I went back and looked at this budget, I saw there are a couple of lines in special ed that had 0 in the requested, but now you moved money into those lines, and they're new lines that I didn't see on the default budget.
Could you?
1,200, 561, 563.
Those are out-of-district tuition or services. And depending on the nature of the placement is whether it's a 561, 563, 564.
So there was nothing requested in 1819, but now you've moved some money into those.
Which means that we may have had a need that shifted from
An
another
obligation.
placement into that type of placement.
But can you move money into a zeroed out line in a default budget? Don't you have to carry at least $1 in a line to move money into it?
I don't think so. This board had voted to do that. And the default budget is,
It's bottom line budget.
you know,
Okay.
and
I
I
don't
want
know.
to say
I just
that.
know.
I want to say that. I think there is a traditional school of thought that a voted budget is a voted budget. And when the budget is proposed by the budget committee is approved, you have an active line if you have $1 in it, and therefore you can transfer into it. And with the default budget, I don't want to say it's a bottom line budget, because I know that it is in a way, but I don't think it worked out to be that way in implementation. I wouldn't see an issue, though, putting money into a zeroed out line, which is in that particular budget.
Okay.
And quite frankly, if that's the appropriate place to capture the expense based on need.
Well, it's an obligation too, right? So you'd have to fund it, so you have to show the expenses incurred there.
I like to show where it belongs.
Okay. And last time you gave us a salary line, but I said I would send to Sue and back to you what we had previously for salary line
Yes.
breakdown, so that we get,
I don't have that report. It'll be a lot easier to get with this budget cycle coming up. But you
okay,
did have
so-
another request, I think, for some positions.
Correct.
I think that was one of the other ones. So I actually have that as well, which I can pass out and share with everyone.
And then one last question is the consulting, because this came up at the SAU meeting last night. I think we do want to bring the consultant in at some point. When is he going to finish, and when can we have him in to have a discussion about his recommendations?
Yeah, when would be good? When would you like? I could
Is
ask
he-
him at any time.
is he done?
Would fit on the agenda.
December? Will he be done by December?
I don't know if we can wait that long.
I don't.
You wait that long?
Well,
Is he done now?
I don't think you want to wait that long,
Oh,
because
we
it's
have,
going to.
we have an SAU concern, like,
Yes, that's
the recommendation, so
correct. I think we want to bring him in sooner rather than later.
would he be ready in 2 weeks?
Could be. I can't make a commitment, I can certainly check with them.
That would be
That
the
would be
day
after
after.
the meeting.
Well, I know, but, well, it is what it is.
Well, maybe you can submit something
In writing
that we
to
can get through,
SAU?
you can get to, well, and we can get it to the whole SAU. Yeah.
Well, we need to
Well,
do,
maybe do you want them at the SAU meeting?
the SAU didn't pay for this.
Good point. That's, I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
that's, my feeling is the SAU should have paid for it, so no, I don't want them at the SAU
I
meeting.
think they should pay
didn't
for all of it. I think they should pay for part of it.
Well, they only paid for part of it, they only paid 23%.
I don't
It's
know,
an SAU function.
23%.
I don't know that anyone's asked Hampstead.
What?
I don't know that anyone's asked Hampstead, I could certainly.
Doesn't involve Hampstead.
Yeah, well,
Will you reach out to him and see if he's available for the 18th, right? That's the next meeting? And if not, a date he can.
sure.
And is his work done here?
No, he continues to assist.
So he's just gonna keep on until we run out of the 20,000? Is that how it's going?
No,
Until he feels that things are
He's
settled.
been in enough areas and looked into, explored enough areas and aspects of the office to be able to make some good recommendations. And if you ask him in the next 2 weeks, he can report out.
Yep.
Okay.
Remember, before he gave us a written report, now you want him physically here. Is that all right? If he's particularly if he's making recommendations? You want to physically see
I think
this man?
so.
I think it makes sense, because.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure the invitation is clear.
Yeah,
what
just so we don't have a back and forth. If he has recommendations, we have questions on that. I want
Very
to.
good speaker. He presents himself really well, so.
Well, it's even with the positions that we were discussing last night. It'd be good to have him here to find
All right,
out exactly
so
what
let's
he's-
go for the, yeah, let's go for the 18th, see if he'll come in. All right? All right, now, this piece of paper is, are we done with that topic, Kim, or can we do this now, or?
Yeah, this is.
Good.
You'd simply ask for the positions, you'd identify.
Right.
Yeah.
These are the non-filled positions?
Correct, I think administrative,
From this position,
professional,
yeah.
and I think we had one that was potentially, I don't know what exactly the discussion was. Perhaps it would be repurposed.
Yes, Chris, Jen, sorry.
Does this list include any positions that we currently have vacant that we are actively seeking to fill right now?
The bottom one? Dean of Math?
Yeah, I
Are
don't
you
know if-
Still looking for somebody there?
No, that was the one position that I told you I would hold in the event that, we have concerns over special ed, but, so we held that position, but we're not actively trying to fill it.
So we don't have any actively open positions that we're trying to fill?
Not on this list.
Okay.
I mean, if you're asking me, are there TTA positions open? I'm sure we have.
Yeah, but they cycle, I mean, we have
Okay.
those normally.
But
Can I ask that a
That's
different way?
fine.
So are these eliminated positions?
No, these
Oh,
are positions that are in the budget that were not filled, because they were in the default budget.
Correct. So, but.
These are all salary savings positions where we.
But we're not eliminating them.
They've already been eliminated.
Well,
No, there's no body in the seat.
No.
there's no body in this.
There's a difference.
They
There's a
carried
difference
forward in a
between
default budget, whether you
eliminated
fill them and
and
save the
not
money.
filled.
Yep.
Is that right, Chris?
We didn't spend
I'm
the money.
proposing
That's
to,
what you're
I'm going to make a motion to eliminate these positions, so it's clear to the budget committee that these are not unfilled positions, but eliminated positions.
So if you're gonna make a motion to eliminate, let's be specific in the motion. Motion to eliminate 1, 2, 3,
6
4,
admins.
5, 6 administration
Next year's proposed budget.
in the
Correct.
1920
That's how you
budget.
eliminate a position, it's the proposed budget. It's
Yes.
not just,
Right.
you don't just magically go like, oh, get rid of those positions. It's
Okay.
like,
Well,
But you didn't get to it yet.
In the
and
nine-
the eight,
and then
the 8
8
professional.
professional positions in the 1920 budget request.
Correct.
I'm going to second for discussion. So,
Discussion?
they're not filled today. Are we not serving the students well because of any of these not being filled right now?
my only concern, like I said, is in the administrative, special ed, where training staff to absorb, we're asking some people to do different things in terms of administrative roles in special ed. So what does that look like? That means counselors doing jobs that maybe a department head of special ed, in terms of meetings and those sorts of things. So the answer is no, I think we're in great shape.
Okay.
So I don't feel like, other than that, I was very honest with you, I don't know what the potential, damage, wrong word, the challenges we're working through those, and I have all the confidence in the world that we'll get them done. So what you see here these are positions that I think we're fine, you know, in that regard. So I appreciate the question, but we're fine.
Jen?
I just wanted you did make a motion, is that right?
Yes, the
For
motion is
okay.
6 administration.
Does that
position.
include the bottom?
No.
No.
So we're leaving that, so the motion is to leave that as is, okay.
That's somewhat of a safety net. In terms of developing a level budget, there's no way I could put these in. So they wouldn't be in the proposed budget that we're preparing moving forward to 1920. Because we can't afford them now, we wouldn't be able to afford them next year with a level budget.
I think the part, is to clean up the housework such that these positions were reduced, were eliminated, however you want to put the phrase of it, but the board officially adopting that we are removing these things makes it very clear when the development of the default budget comes into place that these are no longer in the place. That's where I think makes it very clear.
I'm a little concerned about that sped position, but you wouldn't consider amending your motion to keep that position so it would be 5 admin and 8 professional, keeping that sped admin open into the new budget.
You have the not filled position that you could redivert those funds.
Yeah, if you recall the conversation, it was when we hired
Yeah, STEAM.
STEM person. It was going to be hard for me to make a case to say, like, oh, I want a STEM person and a math
And a
person.
math
That STEM person is responsible for math. And we redesigned the curriculum team so that we're not weakened. We weren't weakened there. We strengthened our curriculum team and our management team with the reorganization. That's why I say we're in good shape. And when I kept that open, the reason I was keeping that open was the safety net, just in case we really struggle with the special ed administrative things. You know, Susan and company are doing a great job. We're in a good shape at the beginning of October. You know, I thought I wasn't going to be able to even make a fair assessment until probably December, January on that position. Because you really have to give it an honest effort, train people and see kind of where you're at. And then find out if anybody's in over their head and needs help. That's when I would come back to you and say, listen, we might need some help. I don't suspect that right now, but I don't know. It's still early.
So you've got it, though.
Yeah, no, it's still there.
Still there.
Yeah.
So
It just wouldn't be called that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just a position.
So we understand that
We'd redesign it.
be a redesign. We'll keep
It's
it,
administrative.
we've got a safety net there.
It's
whatever
all
called.
it's communication coming back, and we understand where the needs are, the repurposing. It's all above board, you know, we're all understanding all
Okay.
that. That's the main part.
Lee, something else.
No, just to clarify in my own mind, so that academic dean could be repurposed into the SPED.
It's administrative.
So that
Or
address.
something else, whatever.
Whatever
Okay,
the
I
need
just wanted
is,
to make
but
sure
you
that-
were asking
But I was
about-
being honest with you when I said when we redesigned, that was my only concern where I felt like not as strong as everywhere else. I felt we would be fine, but if we weren't, that was the safety net just in case, so we held that one position open.
So if you need it,
It's there.
it's there.
And we would come back to you with a redesign and say, like, listen, these are the needs. Is it okay to fill position
That
X
position.
and call it X with these responsibilities because of these challenges that we're having a hard time with? And how will I know that? If there's a lot of due process, if there's a lot of things that are happening in the special ed world, it means we're not meeting the needs. Right now, we're in good shape, but, you know, time will tell.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Motion from Kim did somebody second that? Yeah, I'm sorry, I've been writing that stuff down. Any other discussion? If not, I'm gonna close the discussion and call for a vote. Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote on the motion to eliminate 6 administrative positions as listed for the 1920 budget and 8 professional positions as listed on the 1920. All in favor? 8. Opposed? 1. No abstentions. Thank you. Anything else tonight for Jeff? It's 10:15.
Just a quick question for Jeff. She just said what time it was, stop.
Here all night.
Can
Don't
we
say
have one
that.
of
Don't
these
say
that
that.
just says up to the function code? Just so I can see the quick.
What do you want, Kristen?
I just want a budget printout with just up to that 7-digit function code,
You
not,
want 7 digits,
I just want 7-digit.
not 13.
Not 13. That would
want
just for a quick view, to be able to look at something and say, okay, this is what we're
Looking
doing.
at the 100 and then the.
The function, up to
Just
the
the
next
function
function code, yeah, just so I can see without having to flip 14 pages and go, just a quick comparison to where the money's really
That's- and
going
that's-
in a quick general.
And that's a great request because it is a little bit out of hand in some ways to get down to department it's.
Well, and I don't know if this is where Kim was going before, but it would be great to get that really early on. I don't think we can get into the nitty-gritty too early on before we present something to the budget committee. But to have that up to that 7-digit code and look at it and go, this makes sense, or this is where we're looking to maybe add this year or take away, that gives us some groundwork to then say to the budget committee, look, this is what it looked like last year. We understand we might need to go up in this department or this one. This is what we're kind of giving you the direction to do as far as whether it be a percentage to increase or decrease or level. It's just a cleaner picture than to look at every single line like this and try to say we're gonna hand this over to we'd be here for, that you're doing the dual work. That's, but that 7-digit code,
Yeah,
I think will be huge.
that's what I'm looking at, because at
Yeah.
1100, which is regular ed, the voted budget was 19.8 million. The proposed final, or what we're working on right now, is 19.03. So there's a savings there of a huge amount that goes somewhere
They
else.
can go somewhere else, and we could
And
see it
could see it
quicker, just,
quicker.
yeah,
Okay.
and then we could give a better
That's the
recommendation
level
to the
at which
budget committee.
we need to be looking.
Yeah.
We can't look deeper.
No, we can't look this deep. That's your job, Brian, to go to the budget committee.
Anything else for
Job.
Jeff?
Another job.
Yep, there you go, see? Isn't it good?
I'm gonna need a bonus.
If not, I'm gonna say thank you to Jeff, and we're gonna move on to the next item on our agenda. We're getting closer to the bottom. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great night.
Thank you.
Got a little bit off schedule. We're only 45 minutes off schedule, that's fine. We are at policies. We have 2 tonight, a second reading adoption. You will remember D, J, E. From the last time we met, we made some changes. They've been edited and put into the document now in pretty blue ink. What's your feeling about that one? There we go. This is second read, moving to adoption. Policy Committee, we did not discuss this one tonight. It was not on our agenda. This is where we're at. We moved it on to second read at our meeting on the 20th.
Motion to accept DJE for second read.
Jen makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Lee makes a second. Discussion. All those in favor? 8. Opposed? Abstaining. 8-0-0. Professional hiring, this is a second read too. We added when the board is not meeting, correct?
Yeah.
That was the only change. So I'll listen to a motion to accept.
Motion to accept GCF for second read.
Jen
I'll second.
and Lee, thank you. Any other discussion about this? And just before we vote, Sheila, we get these, we get them, we have 2 weeks to look them over. Questions, but we did have rather a lengthy discussion at the first read time on these, so I don't want you to think we just.
I watched it.
Oh, great, oh, good, oh, good for you. So, we're good for this then? So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? 8-0-0, thank you. Warrant articles. Yep, we're gonna have to write a warrant article. Or articles, remember that's on our plate. I'm gonna keep that on each time just to keep us fresh that remember, as we get closer to finishing the negotiations, hopefully smoothly, that we'll be ready to craft it. We'll get the numbers from Jeff and from Nancy Lewisell, and we'll craft it. There's a template for that already, but
I think one of the topics that we'll probably should be discussing is in respect to, I think it's going to need to generate a warrant article from the Capital Reserve Fund, is to address the PAC, the outside.
I was hoping we could discuss that when I do the CIP presentation.
Well, I was more looking at it as a warrant article that needs to be.
Will be, but so I'd give you the information when we do the presentation from the CIP's committees, review of project ideas, et cetera.
When is that coming? You'll do that here too, right?
Oh, yes.
You have the scores?
And do we have that planned yet?
I've got to
Sorry.
work with Kathy I have to
No
do.
pressure, Kathy.
I got to do SLT first. I have to work out the presentation
Okay.
first. With my committee members. And then I have to do it with SLT. And then I'll come here for discussion and perhaps changes. And then I'll go, when we're finalized, take it to the BudCom.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's enough time in the day. So warrant articles were set on that. We know we're going to probably have to do a few of those because of them. Administrators report, Dr. Metzler.
Quickly, last evening, presented the Timberlane and Hampstead goals at the SAU, and they're in the administrator's report tonight, just primarily. I don't know if we need to discuss the superintendent's goals tonight. You're going to take a look at them and get some feedback to me somehow, some way. I don't know if it's now in a meeting or if you're going to do it individually, whatever works. Pleasure.
I felt from our discussion the other night that you could look those over, and if you had suggestions or tweaks or questions about why is this one in here, remember we're trying to match up, I tried to match up our goals, strategic plan stuff, CIP stuff, I tried to match it all up. So I thought we did pretty well when I looked at them, but I want people to check in. So, did you have a chance, it's only been a mere 24 hours since we met, but did you have a chance?
We can give you the weekend if you get something.
Weekend.
'Cause we have 2 weeks until the next SAU
Right.
meeting, but.
Right. Please take a look at these and email Dr. Messel with suggestions you may have, or if you have a question about a goal we wrote over here that you've forgotten about, I'm
Yeah, I'm
happy.
fine. I sent out an email to all of you earlier, like literally
Way.
way in the beginning to send whatever. So I'm okay with still doing that individually if you want to send them.
Okay.
And I'll work them through Kathy and through Sue. And we can wordsmith what's here, we can add to it. I mean, I don't know if there's something in here that says, I don't want that as a goal, strike it. I don't think there's anything like that doesn't jump off the page to me, but it's entitled to you. So take a look at it, get the feedback to us, and we'll kick and punch it, and then we'll hopefully have a document that everybody feels comfortable with and can support.
And we'll discuss it at the SAU level. I'm with you. So we got a few more weeks.
Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, there was some conversation about the Ceresc and the discount that they're supposed to be providing to us. That's really why I grabbed Jeff, said, where are we with that? They haven't billed us for membership. We will be getting that discount one way or another. What's happened in the past, and sometimes the bills come out initially from any of our consultants, whatever worlds they're working in, and then we get a credit back against our annual membership, right? So that will get straightened out. That's contractual. Now, some of the longer contracts that maybe we didn't like are good because we're guaranteed that. They've changed, the whole organization has changed, the board has changed there. I'm not on the superintendent's not necessarily on the board there anymore. It's the organization has changed considerably. So we're still trying to get some clarity, but we will get the discount one way or another.
How many members are still in that?
I think there's only 5.
Towns, you mean school
Town, I
districts?
think there's us, well, us in Hampstead, but it's us. Londonderry, Bedford, Hooksett, and one more. Merrimack. Merrimack,
That's
so
a
I think
big
it's
school
5.
system.
Sorry.
It's okay. It doesn't sound like very positive information I'm hearing about Ceresc, like that it's changing, that it's shrinking, that fewer people are participating. Can we look at, is this a beneficial service for us to still be using? Or are there other options for us to be considering?
There are other options that are significantly more expensive. So the two benefits here, just to make it simple. So being a member, we're in the top of the list for services. So if we need a feeding and swallowing expert, we get access and we get them. We priced this out because we weren't sure if Ceresco would still be in business at one point. And we went to Booth Bay, was that? Yeah, and some other places that are close, and it was 2 and 3 times the cost. So the answer is, they've reorganized in a sense. The liability there was really their event center, and they sold that building, and they were able to stay in business. So they got back to their core business, which was providing services to districts, not running an event center. The event center really what was putting them under. So they dumped that building, they've reorganized. They didn't necessarily shrink as much, it was a matter of it wasn't just superintendents, it was really, there was school board members or community members or whatever. They had a different kind of board than traditionally just a group of superintendents that were the board members. So the whole, all of their, it's not called rules and regulations, they're articles of agreement.
Bylaws.
Right?
Bylaws.
The bylaws, all their bylaws were all rewritten, and so they reorganized, and they're in good shape. So I don't want to give you the impression that it's not in good shape, but they literally changed their entire business model.
But that list of participating districts seems so small in comparison to the rest of the state. So when you go out and you talk to your peers, what are other districts doing? How are they?
There are other of these kind of places?
There are other places, some further north, so the North Country folks go to a different place. This membership has stayed, the five core has stayed for the last few years. When I first got here, I think it was 8 or 9. There's
so
a few
it
people
isn't a huge
like
drop.
When Wyndham and Pelham split, they left. There was Litchfield, I think. There's a couple of them that left. It got down to budget stuff. The school board didn't want to pay. And here's what the crazy part about that. In some of those instances, they cut the membership fee from their budget, and they paid twice as much that in the services that because they didn't get the discount. It was kind of strange. It was almost like, well, yeah, you should just kept your membership and you'd get the services for less. And they also fell to the bottom of, you may not be able to get the services, so you may have to go to another organization and pay more. So I think, Roxanne knows that business far better than I do. She used to work there. So she's, in the past, years ago, came in and really informed the board, budget committee about what the value was. And I don't believe that value has changed much, just there. I think they've gotten back to their core mission of providing services to district, not running an event center with a caterer and all that. That really,
Weddings.
I don't know. They think they thought at one time where they were located in Bedford was going to be this big event center, and it's just, people are just not doing that anymore. More things are located in their districts. We're using the computers and that sort of thing to do some of that, so.
So bottom line, our concern was that we weren't gonna get our discount. We're gonna get our discount. Whether it comes off at the end of the year, which it did last year, because I was doing the bills then, and I suddenly noticed it, we got this big credit coming off the last couple of bills, and they gave us our discount. So I don't know if that was somebody reminding them, don't forget our discount, but we'll remind them.
Yeah, that's really Jeff. I mean,
Yeah.
we have access to, obviously, the invoices, so that will happen. I don't want to get into why I couldn't have him here tonight, but, annually, and I think, well, I know a few of you know, the TMA and the high school music department, a trip to Washington. So they have a trip to Washington, and I bring that up for several reasons. One, I'd like you to approve it. It's something they do every other year, so I'd like you to approve it so that they can go, because it's out of state. The second part was I met with them, and Sarah was there, to talk to them a little bit, because there's some fear about this who volunteer and how we're going to screen them and those sorts of things. So they gave us a lot of great, they gave us a lot of great suggestions about, have it on a Saturday, have a couple evening nights where people could come in. We talked in detail about what a designated volunteer would look like, and for them to be strategic about who they think would be alone with kids and get them over. And I told them, I said, I'd asked you guys for a little grace period. So my hope is by April, for the end of the year activities, that we'd have a really solid designated volunteer list of people that would screen, that we'd have everybody screen. And that so the first part of that is I'd like for you to, normally I would have had, but he can't be here. He couldn't be here. Tony couldn't be here. So if you could approve the trip to Washington. If you need more details than what I just gave you, I can get them.
It's the same as all the previous years, right?
Correct. It's a Timberlane
They're not missing school for this, am I correct?
No,
It's during
it's,
April
They're still
vacation.
leaving on
it's
the.
still involved
Saturday
in,
to-
yeah, it's over April vacation, like one half of April vacation.
Yeah, it's like
they're gonna be
Saturday to
going
Wednesday or
see,
But we
into
need
the
to-
woods
We still need to
and.
approve the trip, so.
Do we have the
So I'll
dates?
entertain a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to approve that trip.
Thank you, Kim. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you
Awesome.
from Sheila. All those in favor? That looks unanimous.
Thank you so much, and from Mr. D as well.
800.
I had promised him, I said I'd help him with this primarily, and
Who's out of
so,
the room? That is
Jen, so,
so.
anything
and
else?
That's it.
Personnel report?
Personnel report, we have one new hire, and you may know her, it's Kathleen Blood, and that's a Timberlane Regional High School special education teacher, and she had worked with us in a different job in the past, and interviewed and was our top candidate, so her credentials and the interviewing team and everything is in your packet, so I'd ask if we could support that nomination.
Looking for a motion to accept the nomination.
So moved.
Mr. Boyle. And second.
I'll second.
Sarah. You all set? All those in favor? 8-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports. I think this is what we're next, yes. So, let's see. This week we had CIP meeting, and we completed the CIP meeting. I'll work with Kathy and probably touch base with them, the school board members, to get a strategically good presentation through SLT to hear where we can have a discussion, and then, once we're done and all set, go over to BudCom. That's a great committee, and they worked really hard. CNA, curriculum. So, help me here, Sarah, but we had a great curriculum meeting. We had an update about extended learning schedule, or you might call it block schedule. Things are going pretty good. They tried to compare how it was last October to this October, and they're seeing some positive things, particularly with teachers feeling less anxious, more confident, because the kids are fine. They're doing great. And of course, the topic of bells, no bells, always comes up. The kids are fine without bells, and the teachers have worked through that, and they're all good. So that was good. And the other two things I wanted to bring was that we talked about two, I'll call them facelift of a couple curriculums and a slight revision to match changes that occur all the time in curriculum. You write the curriculum 4 years ago, and then all of a sudden. So one was the 6th grade social studies curriculum, and the other one was American literature,
In the high school.
kind of a facelift at the high school. And what I was fascinated with as they were making the presentations, both different people doing the presentations, that these changes and revisions and facelift was brought to curriculum by the people doing the work.
The teachers.
The teachers,
Yeah.
and they worked very hard, had a lot of input, made the changes, went through with the, with deans and some of the curriculum support people, and have made some very nice changes that we accepted, and it just makes our curriculum better and stronger, and
Yeah,
and
there
it was
wasn't
great.
any, it was truly just faceless, there wasn't any changes in there and the competencies or any of the actual, the body. It was just recognizing the teachers came and recognized that the way it was currently set up, there was areas of opportunity. And they tweaked it, and it was all teacher-driven, which was really great to hear, yeah.
So, that's what I did this week, and I'll let Brian go ahead.
I think we already got our update, CIP, budget, and union. We've been,
Good.
so we're good.
Jen, you wanna do policy? Or are we gonna do policy?
Policy, we met tonight, and, I don't know,
Good
we
meeting?
moved through a lot of policies.
We did.
6.
Was it, yeah, there's a lot of
6.
policies coming
Seeing
next
some
week.
some new ones coming along here. We're trying to look at the ones we need to do for legal, ones we need to clean up language or the length of them, so we'll keep working on that. Lee, do you want to jump in now, because we're talking policy?
Yeah, I do, actually, and most of the board knows this. I'm just saying it for the public, really. We had a great session with NHSBA a few weeks ago, a training session, and we got on talking about the topic of policy. And we discussed in detail with them the service that they offer, the policy review service, and got a little bit or a lot more detail about what that entailed and what the fees were around it. So for $1,500, we can have an attorney's service to fully review our policy book, to review it for completeness with required policies that we may be missing, and they would point that out and provide us with sample language. They would review our existing policies to ensure their compliance with legislature and language. They would not, however, review the policy content of our special language, if you will, the Timberlaneized version that is specific to us and our needs. But they would make sure it's accurate according to legislature. So I think we all felt that it was a good service. I think the consensus was there. So I'll put a motion on the floor that we authorize or we engage NHSBA to review our policy manual in accordance with the service they offer for $1,500.
I'll second that.
So, motion made by Lee, second by Kristen, and I know I keep repeating this, but for our public, it's not gonna be a fast turnaround. It's a lot of work for them. They already have other school districts' policy books in the queue, so to speak. We were talking tonight, gee, it would be great if we got it by February. I'm not so sure but they were very confident they will get it done for us and that we'd be happy with the results. And I think $1,500 is a reasonable amount of money for, they're a great organization. They've been down now and done a couple of trainings. We were all there that night. It was really great. So I fully support the motion.
I do too.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah,
Just want to comment, so that the policy committee will still be moving forward because the bulk of their work is with the required policies. I did talk about optional policies tonight that I'm going to forward on, because we have so many policies that it's hard to keep up as they keep making changes. So to have them look at the required by law ones and make sure that, yes, we have them, but if they haven't been reviewed in a while, is the content what it needs to be with, but then also, I would like to look at repealing some of the optional policies to try and pare down the amount of policies that we have to try and keep up with, because I think that's part of the problem. We have so many that we're trying to keep up with.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of $1,500 and set that up with New Hampshire School Boards Association. Looks unanimous, 9-0-0.
And with that, I would actually like to make a motion that Ms. Silva is the point person for this board between New Hampshire School Board Association and this board, overseeing this project.
Makes sense.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for stepping up.
The look of shock on Jen's face. She's
Makes sense, though.
I mean, she's going to have to report back every other, she has to report back. Yes?
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Do the work.
No problem.
She's not doing the work.
I'm not doing the work, so, sure.
The interface and point
The
person.
work associated with that. They're going to come back and they're going to give you changes, and then you have to make those changes. So,
Oh, yeah.
so Jen's going to do that?
Jen's going to be the point person, contact with New Hampshire School Board
To monitor,
Association.
to monitor status. That's
To
the
monitor
intent.
the status, to
Monitor
make sure that things are
status.
happening, and if she needs to bring stuff back here to the board, we'll bring it back here. I mean, these are our policies. These are not
I
the
don't expect to have
administration's
much to report
policies.
back until maybe April.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But she can maybe you can give us how close we're moving up in the queue. You know, like a Disney, you know. Ooh,
I'll keep
it's
the-
only
I'll
a
keep the
45-minute
deli number.
wait now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there's a motion on the floor. Lee, Sean made it, Lee seconded it. All in favor? 9-0-0. All right, can we continue now with committee reports? Sarah, are you set?
I'm good. Yeah, we covered everything.
Kristen?
I got nothing.
Sheila?
Nothing.
Lee's set?
That caused enough trouble.
I don't think it's trouble, but Sean,
I'm all set.
I'm set.
thank you for the work on the committees that we've done. Just this week, it seems like we've really worked hard. We've been here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, many of us, all of those nights, and I appreciate the work. And Brian's still sitting awake. It's a good thing. Anything else, reports to the school board? I will tell you, Sheila and Kristen, there's a cool little report every 2 weeks that I say, take home and look at, that the principals at each school put together about cool things that are happening in their school. And sometimes I wish we had time to read through all of them, out loud, because they've spent some time, they put pictures in often of things they're doing.
If you go back to when that first started, I used to read it. And I started reading the faces of the people while I was reading it.
Yeah.
So then we stopped reading it.
This is, we don't need to read it. I want you to take it home and enjoy it. They like to know, Mike Flynn or whoever has written, thank you for doing this, the pictures were great, or thanks for the information from the Performing Arts Center. They try to do it for us.
Does this get posted anywhere for the public? I mean, it's a great report for.
It is.
I mean,
School board agenda packet.
It's in the agenda packet.
But is it, with the Twitter, is this something that could go out there to give everyone kind of an update of what's going on in our community and our school? Because a lot of people don't know this stuff. And it's just, that's where people are looking. They're not going on the school board agenda packet. They're going, all the kids are following you and your Twitter account. So something like this would be great to let them know there's the Milkman Show coming up. There's this, there's that, there's Project Hope. We don't have that anywhere. You can go
That
to each
is
school.
often on our channel.
You want to punch that?
Oh, I get that, but I'm just saying, can we put it a couple other places? Because it is a
See if we
great
can
report.
work it out. Let them have a chance to see what they can. about
Just
whether we-
logistics, so we have to figure out how we can
How
make
you'd work that work, but I did want you to see that. It's a great little document.
Agreed.
Maybe pick one key paragraph out of there from one of the schools each 2 weeks.
Yeah, or if it's just linked. If he puts it up there, linked, that just.
Okay, I'm gonna move this along. Great discussion, let them have a chance to see what they can do. You've seen correspondence this week, I hope. Where's the vendor and payroll stuff? That's red, Sheila and Kristen? We get that every 2 weeks, sometimes it's bigger.
I think everybody signed.
Sign if you feel comfortable. Any other business? Jen?
I think a while back, we maybe asked, maybe didn't ask, but can we understand, what is the difference between an associate principal and an assistant principal?
An associate principal, as opposed to an assistant principal, would be, if they're, of the three of them, that would be the person that would be senior to the other two. So it's almost like, that person would be a second in command at the high school.
Is the job, so that's the only difference in the job responsibility?
Well, the three assistant principals carve out the work based on their skills, so, that has changed quite a bit. Who's working on curriculum, who's working on management, who's working on counseling, student services, and those sorts of things. So, their jobs, the three of them, are to serve all functions of the school, as Don sees fit. Last year, and I'm so happy that Don's back and healthy, and he's doing great. He was out, that person was second in command, so it was pretty much identifying who would be second in command.
Something else? Yeah, Kim?
Can I ask a follow-up to that then? So I have the press release on this, and it says the title was changed, but it doesn't say it was a promotion. In my education field, assistant to associate's a promotion. Was this a promotion or not a promotion?
I mean, we get into this, like, what do we, are you the senior executive? So it's a title. He's one of the three assistant principals, so is it a promotion? I mean, he was the director of secondary education at one point, so one would argue that, was that a demotion? I don't think so. It's the needs of the district, so. In an organizational chart, the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, so this is not really then correct in the press release, because this is a promotion, not a change in title.
Well, when you think promotion, do you think earning more money?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A promotion can be money or not money. It depends.
To me, this is more responsibilities.
Which
on
then,
promotion.
and Kim would think promotion, and I'd say in an organizational chart, the answer to your question would be yes. So accuracy and a press release, I mean, for me, in terms of looking at, what are the needs of the district? That was a need of the district.
Okay, not to belabor the point, but the organizational chart didn't have a promotion up to 1, 2, 3. I mean,
It
that's,
probably looks like he's on,
it looks like he's on the same level, and apparently he's not. Okay. But I just want to clarify this, because assistant associate at the university level means they're very distinct levels, so that's what I'm interpreting it as.
yeah.
And
I don't think you're misinterpreting it. I don't. I mean, for me, identifying, and then, and obviously salaries and responsibilities. He had a lot more responsibilities than the other assistants in terms of evening division and summer, and so there was
Partners, business partners.
business partnership. I mean, he had a lot of responsibilities that were above and beyond what the other assistants were doing. So, I think, so if we're just talking titles, it's a promotion. For me, it was acknowledging the work that somebody was already doing.
He's been doing.
And you'd say, well, he was promoted to it. I would argue he was already doing it, and I was calling him the wrong thing. That would be my argument.
Jen?
I know I had asked, not publicly, but in an email or expressed some concern about our district, our school and our district Facebook pages being open to public comment. And when you had talked about, can we get this information out there somewhere, it just jogged my memory that, can we look at turning off that public comment? If we don't have somebody.
I thought it was off.
It is not off.
I know he has a whole, I think, maybe he couldn't turn off the comments, but I think there was like certain words that he couldn't comment if any of these words. It was a huge.
Other districts don't
Looking
have
at-
public
again,
comment. It's strictly a mechanism to push information out, not to be taking the
Let's look at that
information
again
in.
then.
Yeah, if it can be shut off, that's fine. I don't know, Dean,
Dean's
do you know anything about the public comments on our Facebook pages?
I am aware that there is in fact a lengthy word block list, but I can check into that.
But is there an on and off, like without the word block? Is there something you can just shut off the comments and that's the end of it?
At one point there was not, but I can double check because they're constantly changing functions.
All right,
but-
let's have him look into that
Or
again.
maybe it's because we have I don't know if it's set up as a group or a page or however it's set up, but I do know other districts have their Facebook pages for their schools, for their district, and there's no public comment. It's strictly a place to
It's one.
push
way.
information out,
Okay,
correct.
so let's
So
look
let's see,
into.
we get Ken to work on that through Dean and.
Thank you. Get it looked at. Kristen?
I hate to do this, one quick thing, hopefully. Being new to this and listening to discussions over the last couple of meetings that we had, it seems like when we see contracts, a lot of people are like, I've never seen this, I didn't know this, I didn't know this one went this long. Is there a central place that or some sort of a ticker sheet that shows us what we have for contracts, the duration, and the amount that we're bound for, especially like budgeting purposes, to see what we're carrying for future years?
Contract for employees or contract for
Everything.
food service? and
Everything.
Waste
Just-
management and.
Right, do we have a
telephone
centralized database on just contracts that we can look at to see, Achieve 3,000, how long's that for? How long are we in, different things like that to know what we're carrying and for how long, so that we have a central place, because like last night, things were put in front of us with the SAU board, and, I'm new, so I'm looking at these for the first time, but I'm kind of relying on my senior board members to have some knowledge, and all of a sudden they're like, we've never seen this before. So now I'm really feeling at a disadvantage because I'm assuming that you've seen them and you know certain things, and then it's not there. So it's very hard as a new member to get caught up and know where we stand on certain stuff. And you just kind of, you're sitting there with 5 other people and you're trying to vote or trying to make a decision, and I felt completely blindsided. So it would be nice
They
to
were
just
just
have
there
some
for
sort of a
information.
reference sheet of something to
Well,
know,
so there's a
not only
series
for SAU, but for these purposes.
Yeah, there's a series of questions. Are the contracts public documents?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
Do people have access to them? Yes, they do. They're here.
Mhm.
Are they all posted on a website somewhere? That I don't believe they're not. So
Yeah.
we have things that you have access to that the public doesn't have access to.
Yeah.
If we started posting things in there, but they're public documents. So we get into why aren't certain things posted? Why are certain things held? Why are certain things here that you have to, you can get if you want, but you need to come in and get them. So that's some internal controls piece, I think, too. And some of the contracts, believe it or not, because we did this last year, there's we can't post them.
I understand,
Yeah,
but
right.
is there like just some reference? I mean, do you have an internal reference sheet, like for you
course
to
we
know,
do.
like, oh,
Yeah,
is
of
that
course.
something we can get?
Would you like
So that-
something that said waste management to 2019?
Yeah, and just it's
Service
like, the
2020.
incremental increase, just to have an idea of what
So
we're
what's-
looking at.
What's really frustrating is you have they tell us there's a non-disclosure agreement, we're not allowed to give it, and then they give it. Like, I'm like, how's that work? You know, so that happened to us,
Yeah.
you know, so
I believe you can legally have a municipality have a contract that is not available to the public, because you're paying it with public
Well, we're not a
funds.
municipality, so.
Yeah.
Well, we're a
School,
government
maybe
entity,
some-
it's the same thing.
Government entities do, because the terms of a contract, and then it's pricing, like, we might have gotten a better price, and they don't want that out there. You know, for different reasons, you know? I don't know. I asked the same question. I go, you're posting your contracts from other, like, why are you telling us we can't do it? You're telling us not to give it to somebody, and then they call you and you give it to them. I'm like, I don't get it.
I've given us a little bit of space about other business, but we're really not supposed to be having another business meeting in the business meeting. So if that's something you want on the agenda, I'll have Kathy put it on the list and we'll work out see what we can come up with. Because this is what happens now, it gets stretched out to something else and something else. And we're not really prepared to talk, they are not ready to talk about that, they're not prepared to talk about that, so.
But I end up talking about it.
I know, so stop talking about it. Kristen will put that on we'll put that on a list. Sheila,
Where are we on busing to get on an agenda?
It's on the next.
it's on the next.
Is it the next one?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's tentative, are they on,
Transportation
are they on
update.
track?
Is it tentative?
Well, we don't
Right.
have
Are
the
we on
agenda
track for
posted, but
that?
that'll be Tuesday, you'd see that, that's.
My plan was, it was going on this next agenda.
Okay, just to
There'd
get
been
an
some
update
requests to
on.
move it another agenda forward. I've had one person request they'd like it later on. So let me work through
Okay,
it.
that's all I had.
Okay, somebody down here, something you'd like on the
Relative to
agenda.
contracts, do we have any contracts that are expiring such that we're gonna have to put out RFPs and that whole process of being new budgets that would come on up, it would affect budgeting?
I'm
I mean, I know the bus contract was, a big one, and that was last year. I don't know if we have anything that's expiring, food services, for example, all these different.
Food service and the bus contracts are good. Those are annual, you annually renew them, so we bring them back to you, and then there's like a 5-year contract with an annual
Yeah.
review. So some of your question is, most likely, yes. Some of them will be worked out through, it could be curriculum stuff that's in curriculum assessment. They'll make decisions about those kinds of contracts. If you're talking the big ones like the bus and the food service, we've been pretty much handling those in the spring, or as early as January, February. You review where we are and you say, okay, we'll renew that contract.
Would you like that question definitively answered? We'll put it
I'm just
on the
looking for a
list.
pipeline, because I remember what I wouldn't want to see happen again is what happened last year with the bus contract. Now, my colleague over here was very well forethought in the spring of that year, saying that we got to be talking about this bus contract because it's going to be done. But it got pushed down the line, and then it got very late in the budgeting process that you're dealing with a budget, a quote coming back in for bids. If something was dealt with, was addressed earlier in the process, we would have had those all that stuff figured out well before the budgeting process happened.
And
And
if
that's
you
what I'm
look
trying to
on-
prevent.
And when you look on our website, I mean, I think we're in much better shape now, a couple of years later, in terms of RFPs and bids and everything, because that's all posted. So that's where I would, you're asking me the question, that's where I would go right now to look, but Tom and Jeff would be dealing with that, unless it was a curriculum thing.
Something you want on the agenda, Lee?
No, just to this
Okay.
point.
Quick, please.
Quickly, it'd be good if maybe going forward in our agenda packets, we had a 12-month look out as to what contracts are expiring.
We could do that.
Personnel, or?
No, like vendor contracts.
Services.
Services.
It's under service contracts catalog, right?
I'm sorry?
That's under
Service
our data
contract
log.
catalog,
Our
or
data log.
back to.
To Kristen's point, yeah.
That's, got it.
I don't think we have any need
wait,
for a non-public.
No, I don't think so. I mean, to Sean's point, maybe we should have the pack wall needs to be.
But you don't have information.
We're talking about warrants.
Right, so,
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't out of the room, sorry. Okay.
Part of the
I want
CIP.
to,
Okay, we'll do it later.
you were out,
Yeah.
but let's get that stuff through SLT, bring it here, have the presentation, so you get everybody hears all the information.
I think another topic should be the default budget. Ties into multi-year contracts. And we need to prepare a default has to be prepared line by line this year.
Okay.
Yep.
Hearing no other needs for things on the agenda, I'm adjourning at 10:55. Thank you, everybody.
Personnel?
Yeah, we did.
We had the one
We
hire.
hired somebody.
You left. You were eating.